I'll just ask the clerk to call the roll.
Trustee Little.
Here.
Trustee Kildee.
Here.
Trustee Morgan. Here. President Craven.
Here. Mr. Little, could you lead us in the flag
Be
salute?
happy to do so. Please rise, face the flag, and repeat after me. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Are there any amendments to this agenda?
There are no amendments.
A few things to amend, wouldn't there? Public comments. I don't have any cards. Is there anyone who would like to speak to the Camarillo Library Board? Other meetings will follow. Seeing no one come forward, we will move to the consent calendar.
Move the approval of consent calendar.
Second.
Withdraw.
There's a motion and a second to approve the consent calendar, which consists of 2 items. Please vote. Motion carries unanimously, I think. Is that right, Mr. Morgan? I can't see your.
Yes.
I can't see your indicator from down here. Okay, we have no departmental items, nothing from legal staff, comments from trustees. No comments? Comments from staff.
I don't have any comments.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, you might want to, if our head of our library might want to say something. She's here.
Do you have a report?
Thank you for the opportunity. I just want to remind people that Saturday, the 21st of February, is Chinese New Year's. It's outside.
Very good.
There'll be
Yes.
Chinese acrobats, dancers, lion dancers. We have special displays in the library, including a 200-foot dragon kite, which was actually flown in the East Coast many years ago. And I do want to tell you one statistic of note. We have surpassed 65,000 library cards. That is almost equal to 1 card for every resident.
Wow.
Next month, we should have surpassed our population in library cards.
I think we should have, yes.
Okay, thank you.
I have a question. What time does that, what's the time of that event for the Chinese New Year?
The Chinese New Year event begins at 1 o'clock on Saturday the 21st and ends at 4, and it's outside, and there'll be food trucks as well, so you can bring an appetite.
In the back area there?
In the back area,
lawn area?
of the lawn, yes.
Okay, thank you very much.
And Barbara, just to put it in scale, I think last year you had around 6,500 or so.
No, we had 2,000 people last year,
Okay.
which was an increase from 500 the year previous.
Okay.
So if it quadruples again, there will be over 6,000.
Okay.
Yes, we'll
And the
see.
time again was?
1 until 4. Starts at 1.
4. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, anything else? This meeting's adjourned.
Okay, I'd like to call the regular Camarillo Sanitary District to order for February 11th, and let the record reflect that all directors are present. Any amendments to this agenda?
There's no amendments.
Public comments for the Cam San District. Move down to item 3, the consent calendar.
Move the approval.
Second.
It's a motion, a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, please vote. That passes unanimously. Okay, any comments from the staff at this time?
I don't have anything, Tom. No.
Comments from the staff? Any comments from the board members?
No comment.
All right, so with that, we are going to recess to our 7:30 part of the agenda for a mid-year budget report. So with that, we're in recess.
Call the meeting of the Camarillo City Council to order. Let the record show that all members are present. First item B, is there any amendments to this agenda?
There's no amendments.
Okay, hearing none, we'll move on. There's no presentations. We have the consent calendar.
Move the approval.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Please vote. Consent calendar is approved 5-0. Next item is the, under the departments, city council, first items are under the community development department. And the first item under that community development is Shea Homes, St. John Seminary, General Plan Amendment 2007-3 referral status report. You have a report? Joe?
Yes, thank you, Honorable Mayor Little and members of the City Council. On January 14th, the City Council requested that a status update be provided on General Plan Amendment Application 2007-3, which is the original application of Shea Homes for a general plan amendment on the land associated with St. John's Seminary. Brief history includes that on January 24th, 2007, the City Council referred this Shea GPA application. Staff proceeded to work with the applicant on preparation of materials to work towards an environmental impact report, and on June 27th of 2008, a notice of preparation of a draft EIR was prepared. Following that, specific plan preparation commenced, and the project description was updated. So subsequently, on February 19, 2013, a second notice of preparation for a draft EIR was prepared. And then work on the draft EIR continued, but was never finalized for public review. The project description continued to evolve, and studies were commenced and analyzed and refined. And ultimately, Shea put the project on hold as a result of the economic downturn. Then recently in this past summer, Shea updated their market analysis and pro formas and provided staff with some preliminary concepts for a modified project. A new project description is being formulated, and once that is established, it would restart the environmental review process. This is an aerial photograph of the subject property, which is just north of Upland Road, just east of Lewis Road, and just west of the existing Pinnacle residential neighborhood. And you'll notice Padre Sarah Parish down kind of towards the bottom of the aerial photograph. So the subject site is all of the land that is located east of the existing St. John's Seminary Theology campus. The college was closed, and Shea Homes has been working with the Archdiocese on a potential land development, which would include the general plan amendment. This highlights the bulk of the analysis and information provided in your staff report, which is a comparison of the original proposed project that Shea began working on in 2007, which originally was for a range of 390 to 430 total residential units. It was a mix of densities, which included attached and detached housing products, and they were all 2- and 3-story product types with 2-car garages and guest parking. The original concept was open to all traditional retail housing markets. It was non-gated, and it had a centralized amenity for residents. The new concept that they're working on and formulating at this time is for a range of 270 to 290 residential units. It's a mix of traditional detached single-family homes. And since staff drafted the staff report, the information that Shea provided in the staff report indicated that all units are detached. They've since updated their concept to include some attached cluster housing, which would be a duplex product. All the units remain in the concept to be 1-story with some pop-up bonus space, but all functional living would be done on a 1-story floor plan. And all of the proposed concept units would have 2-car garages with additional guest parking spaces. The new concept is for a age-restricted community that would be open to seniors 55 and older. It would be gated, and it also includes a centralized amenity for residents with walking trails and additional open space pocket parks. Kevin Harbison, the Community Development Manager with Shea Homes, is going to provide a presentation of the current project concept, and so I'll be turning it over to him so he can give you some more updated information on what their ideas are at this point.
Please identify yourself for the record.
Yes, sir. My name's Kevin Harbison. I'm Community Development Manager with Shea Homes.
Thank you.
Ah,
It is. Go to the next slide.
Good evening, council members. And thank you for
Please,
the
bring the microphone.
thank you for the opportunity to allow me to address you today regarding our updated conceptual plan for the St. John Seminary property. At this time, I'd like to emphasize this is our conceptual vision for the property. We have not submitted any formal applications to the city. The goal of the seminary development, it's important to kind of understand the seminary's stance on this. And really, they're looking to repurpose the defunct section of the seminary property that was formerly used for an undergraduate campus to enhance their endowment for the graduate campus. Right now, they receive a subsidy from the LA Archdiocese to run that graduate campus, and they'd like to gain independence from that subsidy and become self-sufficient. And with that, I kind of want to jump into the current vision that we've been working with the seminary over the last 6 to 8 months. It was important for us to really try to find a use that was compatible with the seminary, and we landed on active adult lifestyle concept. This would be an age-restricted concept, 55 and up requirement, and I'm not going to get into too much of the active adult. We have reasons for wanting to go that direction, but what I will do is kind of hit the highlights. Active adult, we feel there's a big opportunity there for people in the immediate vicinity to take advantage of this type of development. It's not necessarily a traditional retirement community that a lot of us think of, very, very large communities, a lot of times based around a golf course or other large amenities. This is a very small boutique type of development. The customers for this type of development are looking to downsize and simplify, redirect monthly expenses, maybe get out of a bigger house or whatnot. Social component and retain family connections are very important as well. There's an amenity that's featured, and with our particular development, I want to get into the architecture types. We're proposing single-family detached, cluster home, mortar court detached, and we're also proposing a hybrid cluster, which will have the duplex attached with a detached in the front of the cluster. This is a good example of an actual development down in Orange County that utilizes the cluster development. The benefits, these slides really highlight the benefits. I know I'm running short of time here. And I just want to show the conceptual site plan before I run out of time. So this is what we're looking at over that area at this time. Again, we're in the range of about 270 to 290 units. We have not really gotten too detailed with that at this point. We're still in the conceptual process, so we'll continue to work to refine to come to an actual unit count. I have additional perspectives if you care to see them at this point, but I've seemed to have run out of time.
Okay. Is there any questions by the council of Mr. Harbison before?
catch me up a little bit. Where is the seminary?
The seminary would be to the top of the picture, the actual institutional buildings to the top of the photo.
In the gray type area.
Correct. Right there.
Okay.
And then down in the lower left-hand corner, that's Padre Sarah Parish.
I have a question, Bill, when you're
Yeah.
ready.
Kevin?
I don't know if this is Kevin by the way, that's a great first name.
Thank you.
I don't know if this is a question for you, but the entrance and exit of that, is that been developed yet? Is that?
Well, we have a proposed entrance exit that's actually adjoining the existing Padre Sarah Parish. There's an exit driveway in that location that we're proposing our entrance. We would actually propose to close that and reorient it and basically combined it with our entry. But we haven't nailed down any details on that yet.
Okay, thank you. That's all I have, Bill.
Okay. Any other questions? Okay. Thank you very much. We may call you back.
Thanks again.
Sure. Joe, do you have any other comments?
I would just like to please request that the city council provide direction to staff regarding the general plan amendment referral at this time. That's staff's recommended action.
Okay. Any questions?
Joe. I have a question to Joe.
Yes, Kevin.
So we're just asked to provide some direction tonight as far as a proposal.
Yes.
Is
Yes.
that correct, Joe? And I noticed that the first proposal, goes back, 5 or 6 or 7 years ago, Joe. But it was for, I believe, about 400 units, and this one's for about 290 units.
Correct.
Now, are they spacing them differently? Are they, and I know this is pretty conceptual here, but did they just kind of narrow the scope, or does it look like they want some more open space here, or is there anything that you can ascertain for?
We don't have a formal application
Yeah.
submitted, so we haven't had time to conduct a thorough analysis.
Yeah.
I would say upon a cursory review, the density appears to have been reduced in this concept. If you just do the math of the number of units on approximately 90 acres, it comes out to about a density of 3 units to the acre. And that's less than what was originally proposed.
Now, I haven't been up on this this property in a number of years. Is it being used for anything right now, as far as you know?
No, it's not. I was on site about a month ago with the applicant and Mr. Burrow. And so the existing seminary campus is pretty much vacant, and there's some deferred maintenance relative to some of the vegetation and materials out there. So it's not really in use at this time. There are some orchards that are still look to be irrigated, but there are other areas that do have deferred maintenance.
Are the structures still there?
They're there, but they're vacant.
And around those structures, as I recall, they did have, I think it was some citrus trees there, either orange or lemon trees. Was that what?
That is correct. There is a mix of some citrus orchards, and I believe in some areas some avocado as well.
Joe, do you know if they're irrigating it or watering it at any?
In some areas it did appear to be irrigated, and others it was fallow.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
Anyone else have any comments, questions?
Have comments.
Yes. Okay.
I had asked for this agenda item because, for a couple of reasons. One of them being the fact that this thing's been out there for 7 years, which to me is something we need to talk about too. Then we have projects staying out there for that long, out on the referral piece. But also the fact that I had gone to the, I guess it was the initial public meeting that they had for residents in the area, and learned that it was going off in a total different direction than what we had heard before. So it seemed to me that before we, the applicant spent any more time or money, that we ought to step back and look at it again 7 years later and see if indeed the timing was right, and if the need was there, or even the desire for such a project, rather than continuing on for a few more years. Because the way my understanding is, they've really got to go back and do a lot more work, because one, they've changed the project, and two, it's been 7 years since they started it all. So that was the reason for asking for it. And I think there's a couple of important things here that we need to take into consideration. We need to decide whether the city needs this at this point in time. And as we all heard at our last meeting, we have housing to meet our housing needs, zoning and those that are already out there under construction and on all the different phases to last us to 2021. So we don't need to do this project to meet any of our housing requirements. So then it gets down to, is it something that's desirable, or is there another reason to do this? And I think from sitting through the the meeting with the residents, the surrounding residents, they brought up so many questions that I'm not sure it's the right time. I think we got some real traffic issues down there when somebody asked a question about how to get in and out of the project. So I really think that my suggestion would be, and in fact I will make a motion, that we bring this back to consider rescinding the referral, because I don't really think it's the time in the city's life for this project. I don't think the need is there right now, and I think we have so much going on, our planning department, all the things that they have, we really do not need this project at this point in time, and I think it's just wise to deal with it now rather than spend any more time or money on it.
Okay. Yes, Charlotte.
Yeah, I don't know. I'd read this in terms of an update. I hadn't read it in terms of whether we want to bring it back to consider rescinding. I think if we brought it back, it would certainly be to consider whether we wanted to continue it or rescind it, not just rescind
I'll
it.
tell you my
Yeah, I understand that, but I think we have to be open. I also think that this is an opportunity to request that the policy committee or an ad hoc committee or somebody take a look at these things that have been out there so long. Callegas Creek was out there for so long. And then this one had nothing. I know in all the years I've been on the council, I only remember one that we brought back and actually shut down because no work had been done on it, and that was the McGrath stuff out by the airport. We had, isn't that right, Mike?
Yes.
We had referred it, and they did nothing. They didn't deposit any money or anything else, and after about 8 or 9 years, we brought it back and said, you know, it's time to get this off the list, because we're always looking at how much work staff has to do, so if there's no work being done on it, take it off the list. So we did that. But I think we need a process so that after a certain length of time, especially of dead time, if it's taking somebody, if they've discovered faults and they're trenching and it takes a lot longer than normal, but they're active, that's one thing. But this languished for years. So I don't object to bringing it back, but I certainly would need more detail on what they wanted to do than 3 minutes worth before I could make a decision.
Mr. Morgan?
Now, this is one of those kind of get you from both sides, because the first project they brought in, this is not the same project. Not at all.
No.
This is not even close. The other one was,
no, it isn't.
you had multiple housing units up next to the seminary. You would have caused a lot more traffic. They've improved it, but they've taken their time. In the meantime, other housing units throughout the city have put themselves in line to be for points. And so this one, in my opinion, would come again at the end of that line, and we have 6 years of 6 years of allotments out there to give out. You know, 400 a year times 6. You know, that puts us about what we've got out there, and they would have to wait anyway. I think I wouldn't mind bringing this back to discuss it, but we also consider: do we need to continue it until another time? Another time, maybe it's not the time for that housing project. It's much improved. I got to tell you, it's much improved. You've left a lot of green space. I think the parishioners at Padre Serra, where I go, are happier, and weren't happy last time. But this might make them happier. But I think timing might be a key to this.
Your Honor, can I throw out a motion and then we can discuss that
Can
motion?
I make my
I'm
comments,
sorry.
please, before any motions? I have some knowledge of this. I was involved through Padre Serra Parish as an information process back when it first came forward. And we've got to keep in mind what the intent of this whole project is about. And that is that the seminary is now being subsidized by the Archdiocese of Los Angeles to the tune of a couple $1 million or more. Money which, frankly, I understand the Archdiocese doesn't really readily have. So the idea was to sell off the 90 acres to Shea. Shea, in turn, would pay all the development cost, and at the end of that process would, after some project had been approved on that project, on that land, would then have an appraisal made of the value of that land as ready for development, and that is the amount of money he would put into a endowment fund for the maintenance of the seminary, which could be substantial. And that was the whole thrust behind that project. Plus the fact they have a college that's been closed for about 15 years now and is falling apart and needs to be something done to the buildings. So that was the idea behind that project. I agree with Councilman Morgan that this is much improved from what the original plan was. And keep in mind that while we've had projects of a variety of projects in the interim years, we haven't had a adult senior project such as this. In fact, I don't think there's one like this in town. This is different from Leisure Village. It's different from some of the others that are being talked about, but it will serve a particular population of this city.
Same thing.
And one that is not being served with the type of housing that we're talking about here. So I don't mind talking about it further, but I, like the rest of them, I'm not interested in saying at this point in time that we don't want to give any thought to this thing. So,
Can I make a
yeah,
comment?
sure.
Yeah, I don't have enough. I don't think anybody has enough information tonight. This is at first blush for me that I've seen this. You got to look at what happened. I'm a business owner too, and what happened in 2007 and 2008 with the recession. There was a number of builders that were that close to being bankrupt in the country, and specifically in our city here as well. So the first proposal that they got, of course, it's going to be probably much different today than what it was then. But I think we do need some more information on this. Perhaps we don't want to do this for a number of years. I don't know. I don't have enough information to make any determination on this. But I think the process, we do need to look at whether or not we have these things in the hopper for a number of years and where they're going and what the potential for them to work out or not. And, you talk 6 or 7 years is probably a long, but the world has changed a lot then. And yes, you're right, Bill, that this is an opportunity for the LA Archdiocese to fund the what do they call, not the college, but the other one that's up there. And I believe in the original grant, theology, the original grant, I believe, said that the theology does have to stay in perpetuity. I believe that was part of the grant and one of the reasons why they were able to get it, I believe, from the Camarillo family, did mention that there will be a seminary of some sort somewhere on that project and that property up there.
It will remain that way, or it'll go back to the Camarillo family?
Or go back to the Camarillo family, yes.
That's right.
Yeah.
Your Honor, can I throw out a motion, and I think it's pretty general that we direct staff to bring this item back for review, to review the general plan amendment referral for the Shea project and to consider options on that referral.
I'll second that.
Nice and general. And
Okay. Been a motion to option to bring it back with to discuss the project and the options thereof. Is that what you're asking?
Well, I'm referring, we're going to discuss the general plan referral, because
Right.
that's really what we have the.
Exactly. All right. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion carries 5-0.
And may I add one more thing to add on the list that we need to hear about? Obviously, we want to hear more about the project. From what they were saying at the public meeting, it sounded like the funding arrangement may have changed as well. So we need an update on that, if
That's a
that's
good
going to
point.
help you
If it
base
has,
your decision.
We should have what's the latest arrangements between the Archdiocese and the developer. Okay. Nothing more. We'll move on to the next item, which is from the city attorney. Resolution extending emergency proclamation Camarillo Springs debris flow.
Yes, as the
As the council will recall, there were some events which occurred in Camarillo Springs in 2014 involving debris flow incidents on October 31, 2014 and November 1 of 2014. A proclamation was issued by the city manager on November 1 of 2014, finding a local emergency due to those conditions. Since that time, the council on a number of occasions has extended that proclamation, which is consistent with Government Code Section 8630 that requires that the City Council review the need for continuing the local emergency at least once every 30 days until the City Council terminates the local emergency. Since the rainy season will not end until on or about October 1 of 2015, it is recommended that the City Council consider extending this proclamation at least through October 1 of 2015 in order to allow an opportunity to determine the effectiveness of the improvements which were constructed at the site in the period of December of 2014. There hasn't been a significant rain event since that time, so that would be the reason for continuing the proclamation of emergency. A proposed resolution is in your packet. It's February 11th. We will most likely have another meeting in March to assess whether you want to extend the proclamation, and that extension would take us past the April 1st date. And then when you look at this in April, you could make a decision as to whether to further extend or to terminate the proclamation. So I'm not sure, Mr. Fox, did you have any update on the status? No? Okay. So this is just a matter of the resolution to extend the proclamation. Certainly, if you have questions about that or the project status, we're available.
Okay. Any questions? Yes, Kevin.
Yeah, Brian, what specifically, if we extend this, what specifically would that entail?
Well, what it would entail is the adoption of the resolution to extend, and then the proclamation would remain in effect. The ultimate outcome of that in terms of potential future funding is yet to be determined. My understanding is that, as you recall, the NRCS did provide some funding. Well, actually, it's going to be a reimbursement to the city for the improvements that were done in December. Whether or not there might be future funding opportunities available is still under review. And so the theory here is that by continuing the proclamation, the logic of continuing it is because there has not yet been a test of the improvements to see how effective they will be. So we don't know whether or not, if there would be a future significant rain event, how effective those improvements would be, and the issue of the potential future funding.
Okay, thank you.
And if I could quickly add, the conventional potential funding eligibility keeps us open for that. And I've also heard, although not verified, that some of the private insurance policies have a stipulation that helps with their insurance reimbursement or funding if the local agency has a proclamation declared.
Okay. Just for the record, we will be discussing this whole issue about at 7:30.
After we have some business at 7:30, I'm going to estimate around 8:15 or so. We'll have a second study session this evening.
All right.
On this topic.
On this topic, yes.
Dealing with the actual situation out there on the
Yes,
ground.
and it's open to the public and welcome. And if you could, if there's a lot of folks interested, we'll have it out here. We're set up to go either way, or we if there's not that many members of the public, we would have our normal study session in the administrative conference room.
Okay, is there a motion?
Move to adopt the resolution extending the proclamation of local emergency.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? If not, please vote. Motion carries 5-0. Thank you. Okay, we'll proceed to City Manager, Santa Maria Rail Spur Extension Project. Mr. Manager?
I'm going to defer to our Assistant City Manager, Dave Norman.
Okay, Dave?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Tonight we're going to speak about the effect of the proposed rail spur for the Santa Maria refinery for Phillips 66 upon the city of Camarillo. For the Phillips 66 company, today most of their oil is delivered via pipeline to the Santa Maria refinery, which is in that orange circle. The yellow lines you see on the screen are actual pipelines that deliver oil throughout California and through other areas to various pump stations and then to the Santa Maria refinery, which is east of Nipomo, south of Arroyo Grande, and immediately west of the Oceano Dunes State Park. Now, Phillips also gets oil through a rather involved route that includes oil coming from the Central Valley line here through Bakersfield by rail, and then it's transferred in Bakersfield by truck, and then it takes the 166, Route 166, all the way over to the Santa Maria pump station. And then it's pumped from the truck tankers, and then from the pump station it goes about, somewhere between 20 and 25 miles up this way to the Santa Maria refinery through that pipeline I just showed you. Their proposal is simply this. Phillips wants to extend a rail spur from their existing refinery property to the Union Pacific Railroad main line, and then also add an unloading facility here so they can add a small pipeline here on their property so that they can take oil directly from rail and have it refined at the refinery. So here's the Union Pacific Railroad main line, and going south it takes you eventually through Camarillo. And of course here's the new rail spur. This is a picture of the Union Pacific Railroad railway system throughout the western United States, and Union Pacific has most of the rail through the western United States. And what's important to see here is in California there are approximately five ways to get into California, actually six, into California from Oregon, actually three in Nevada, one through New Mexico, and actually there's a point here in Calexico. But it's also important to note that anything coming into California goes through two Union Pacific rail yards, one in Colton and one in Roseville. They all end up there. And then from there, they will travel one of several routes to get wherever they're going. And for us, the important route is this coastal route. And so here's Colton, here's Roseville. And what's important to note is that using the coastal line, Phillips would deliver oil via train directly to the Santa Maria refinery. And it would come from either the north or the south. The EIR states that up to 250 trains a year, or an average of 5 trains per week, could deliver oil to the Santa Maria refinery. It's also important to note that all of those 5 trains could come through Camarillo, or only some of them because some of them could be coming from the north, or none of them because all of them could be coming from the north. So how much oil are we talking about? Each oil tanker car holds between 26,000 and 28,000 gallons of oil, one of these guys here. It's a lot of oil. Now, each full oil train has up to 80 of these cars. And when you do the math, a full oil train contains between 2 million and 2.25 million gallons of crude oil. For Camarillo, we need to consider that the length of an oil train is going to be about 1.4 miles long. And for the rail going through Camarillo, starting here at Las Posas Upland Road, and then here at Adolfo Crossing, and then down here at Pleasant Valley, what this means is that the longest length of track between at-grade crossings is between B and C, and it's 2.17 miles with a 1.9 mile sidetrack. This is where the track is double-tracked. Now, it is possible that an oil train could stop and block both Las Posas and Adolfo if the train were to stop, let's say, here going south or here going north. That oil train would block both of these intersections. However, if it stops here at Pleasant Valley, it will only affect Pleasant Valley for traffic purposes. Of course, it goes under the 101 freeway, and if the train were to ignite and catch fire, it would stop all traffic on the 101. So safety risk. There are two perceptions of safety risk here, and I'm going to give you the risk scenario that was developed in the draft DIR. First, and then I'm going to give you the other one. So for a probability of an oil spill in Camarillo, the draft DIR came up with a range of probabilities for the city of Camarillo. And the first is that there is a 0.0129%, that's less than 0.25% of a probability for a spill incident that does not result in fire. That's actually a fairly small spill, and in the draft DIR, they cut off small spills at 100 gallons. So they didn't count a spill less than 100 gallons. It would be a minimum 100-gallon spill, and that's what they did their probability analysis on. And then for a spill incident with ignition, meaning it results in fire, it's much less, they're saying to the point of insignificance. And that's because their draft DIR is based on the delivery of crude that is fairly stabilized. And I'm going to get to this in a minute. And that you would need a significant amount of that oil for it to catch fire and explode and end up with an ignition scenario. Also, they mentioned in the EIR that there have been no hazardous material spills from trains in Ventura County between the 10 years of 2003 and 2012. And the Santa Maria refinery is currently designed to take stable, low flash point, local crude oil at this time. That's what the refinery is designed to take. This is where it gets interesting because the commenters have a different perspective. And that is the real purpose of the Phillips project is to take delivery of cheaper crudes, local crude oils. The ones that the ones they are taking are from the outer continental shelf from platform Irene here in Santa Barbara Channel, and also from mostly local California fields such as Bakersfield and Santa Maria and Orcutt. But what Phillips has said locally is that they really do want to access cheaper crudes, and the cheapest crude right now is Bakken Formation oil and Canadian oil sands crude, and it's in abundant supply. And we know it's in abundant supply because oil trains carrying that crude are all over the United States right now, and it's a big public issue, and oil is really cheap. Now, Bakken oil is highly volatile. It's a lot more volatile than the local California crude we have here. It's a different type of oil. It has a different chemical composition. Now, the DIR risk analysis, according to the commenters, fails to account for additional trains on the system and the delivery of Bakken oil. What's interesting is that in the first draft DIR that went out, on the delivery manifest that they were proposing for the refinery oil spur, it did include Bakken oil. Then they went back and then they recirculated a public draft of the DEIR and took Bakken off the list. Now, the plant, I mean, we have to be fair. The plant is not designed, and it cannot refine large quantities of Bakken oil currently. However, the Bakken oil can be blended in small amounts with the locally resourced crude and used through the refinery. Commenters have suggested that Phillips has plans to upgrade the plant to be able to take Bakken and some of these other crude oils. This is what happens with Bakken oil trains, and can happen. At 1 a.m. on July 6, 2013, in the town of Lac Mégantic, Quebec, a 74-car Bakken crude oil train derailed. 63 of those cars caught fire and exploded, and that's the picture. And they were still trying to put out that fire the next day. Now, the aftermath of that is that 47 people were killed, half of their downtown was destroyed, and nearly all of downtown is going to be demolished due to the contamination. The rail company itself, they went bankrupt and left a $180 million cleanup tab for someone to pick up. This is an issue before the San Luis Obispo County Planning Commission, and the comment period for the DER was October 9th, 2014 through November 24th, 2014. There were a large number of comments, and some of them were actually quite technical. We know there's significant public opposition from inside and outside of San Luis Obispo County. The movement of crude oil in North America is a big debate, mostly because of several accidents, not only the one in Lac Mégantic, but also in others throughout the United States. We also know the Keystone Pipeline is hot in debate right now, and oil trains are a big topic. There is no public hearing set in front of the San Luis Obispo County Planning Commission. My staff report says that we can anticipate that in 30 to 90 days. I spoke with the responsible staff member this morning. They have no idea when this is coming back. There's a lot of comment to plow through. So there's still time for us to comment if we want to. Any questions, further discussion, and
I have a
direction?
question.
Yes.
Yeah, you gave us the probability of an accident for a spill, and then later you said there was, I think you pronounced it Bakken oil in tankers all over the country, and since the one train crashed and burned in Canada, probably in Canada too. Do we have any idea of what the probability of one of those trains exploding like that is?
No, I don't have that information.
Thank you.
I have a question.
Yes, Kevin.
Yeah, Dave, do you know if any of those type of oils are on any trains that are currently going through our city?
We do not know.
You don't know?
No.
Yeah. Do you know if those trains are specifically designed and developed to, kind of train crude oil? Or is there any different design that is in any of those trains, or is it ones they've been using for a number of years, or do we know?
There is in front of the Rail Transportation Safety Board a proposed rule to come up with a new design for oil tanker cars that helps with the situation in a derailment so that they can avoid spills and explosions such as what's been happening. But the current rail car design is proving to be inadequate for highly volatile oils.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, Mike.
A couple questions. Remind me, how many of these loads would come through here a month, potentially?
Well, as was discussed in the presentation, the Santa Maria project can take up to 250 trains per year. What you see people talking about is an average. If you take that 250 and break it down by 50, 52 weeks, comes out to about 5 trains per week. That's no guarantee. They could take 10 trains per week, but they only have so much capacity to be able to unload these trains. With the project they have, so someone has figured out that on an average, the trains would be on the system for about 5 trains per week.
Okay, I got a couple more questions.
Yes.
But not necessarily through Camarillo. That's from the north and the south.
Yeah, they're coming from the north and south to the refinery, either through Roseville or through Colton.
Okay. You answered my question about exploding, because if they derail, they can explode, and they probably will. We had one like that in San Bernardino on Highway, I think it's 15. That was on the side of the hill there and rolled down to the neighborhoods and burned that, if you recall that, about...
I do recall that, and that was because there was an underground pipe directly below there that had exploded, and that's what burned.
That's right.
Well, anyway, oil burned. The pipeline that we're talking about, you have a pipeline that goes there right now. Is that pipeline not sufficient with the amount of oil it can take through that line?
Those pipelines are designed to pump locally sourced oils. They're not designed to pump other oils that may be of a more volatile nature or a different type of crude.
So it's the type of crude itself, because you could always unload somewhere and get into that line, which would be okay, but it's a different type of crude that's not to our standards, I would think, more flammable and so on and so forth.
That's the definition of Bakken oil.
Okay. Air quality. Now, I'm on that board, it's Tri-County Air Quality Board, and I represent the County of Ventura. One questions that we'll be getting a word back soon in our next meeting in March is what kind of pollutants are anticipated into those mountains. Right now, you don't know it, but San Luis Obispo is non-attaining. Everybody thinks it's attaining. It's air quality. It's not, because of air that's coming in from Monterey County. Is to get into like a bathtub ring in the mountains, and so they've got to be prepared with that. What would happen with this? I know this blows in, so it blows from the west into directly inland from there. Would that, if it increased a lot, would that be potentially harmful for Santa Barbara County? By Santa Barbara County, I mean residential areas.
We haven't analyzed those.
Okay, I'll find that out when we come back.
Anything else, Mike?
One more thing, Keystone. You know what's funny is the people that are against Keystone are railroads, because they transport so much on railroads. They're against the Keystone, which is actually safer than all those railroad transportation of oils. That may be something we need to consider.
Jan?
Just to get back to what it is they're doing and what we could somewhat object to. We have no say on what travels the rails through Camarillo,
No, we don't.
obviously. Unfortunately, maybe. So they're before governmental agencies in San Luis Obispo County because they want to extend the rail line to the spur to connect. Once that happens, and if they were even to do it under which kind of crude that they were going to carry, that spur would be there, which would allow them to move whatever. So once that's there, that could open up to
The biggest
more.
The biggest fear of commenters is that that scenario in which the proposals coming from Phillips would allow them to refine Bakken oil at the site in the future.
Because that could be the next step.
That
Once
would
they
be
get
the
that, then
next logical step.
what would they have to go through in order to switch over to be able to do that?
Well, they would need to, they're going to have to change their plant. And so they would have to come back, and they would most likely have to get new air quality scenarios through APCD in San Luis Obispo County, and also through the planning department for San Luis Obispo County. Phillips has been there for 50 years. They've had that plant for an awful long time. You know, it's been expanded over the time. You know, they're smart operators. They know what they're doing. They can see the future. Got to remember that the local California oil fields are not producing as much as they did 50 years ago.
Sure.
And so if they want to keep that plant running and have a return on that investment cost, they need to have oil delivered to that plant somehow. And they've got to get it from somewhere.
So I guess going back to why we would chime in on all of this at this point in time is because it would be the one time when we perhaps would have a say on what's going through Camarillo. Because they aren't going to take it through, you know, the Balkan oil through if they can't connect.
That's a possibility.
Going around in circles there.
Right. There are a couple things to look at here. Number one, you know, there are possibilities for traffic impacts in Camarillo because of the length of the train.
Sure.
We don't know, you know, how many trains are coming through, and if it's 5 per week, you know, and they're all blowing horns or doing whatever, you know, it's a noise impact also.
Dust, everything.
And then and since we don't know the exact cargo of crude oil on those oil trains, you know, it's a concern. And they are not, you know, the rail system for national security purposes does not publish the manifest of their cargo on the rail system.
So I guess what I'm getting at is a very legitimate for us to be concerned here on a local level, not just.
It definitely has an impact on us.
John,
Yes.
I have one more question. You keep emphasizing that a train of 80 cars is so long, and it could stop too. Are these cars longer than regular box cars? They've been lengthened in the last 30, 40, 50 years, because we currently have trains of 100, 115, 118 box cars going through. I personally have been stopped at these places when the trains stop. You stop sometimes 5 minutes. But we've never objected or said anything to those. So I'm wondering, are the oil tanker cars longer than the box cars that we should be concerned about, or?
I haven't looked at that. And I haven't calculated that.
I've got a couple questions. Number one, do you know if there's any refineries on the West Coast that is refining Bakken oil at this point in time?
I do not know.
So does it mean that they will or won't?
Doesn't mean that they're not.
Okay. But I would think that it would have been part of the EIR if this was in fact a possibility that refineries are in fact refining Bakken oil on the West Coast, because there is a transportation cost, a significant transportation cost from the Canadian and North Dakota and South Dakota oil fields to get it out here, to even get it onto a pipeline. So that was just one question. The other one I have, it seems to me I read someplace that the period for comment on this, it closed at the end of January. And I'm just wondering why we are in the process of trying to, you know, comment after it's closed.
Well, recognize that our comments are not necessarily a comment within the comment period of the EIR. However, the weight of public opinion does bear on planning commissioners. And if there's new information after the comment period that is of significant value, then the planning commission has to take that into consideration after the close of the comment period.
Well, it seems to me this is somewhat symbolic, but I'll let that go for now. Is there any other comments from or questions from the council? We do have some people in the audience who would like to make comments. If not, we'll call up. I'll take this in order that they've been given to me. The first one is Rick Gardner. Please remember you're limited to 3 minutes, and we'll appreciate your staying to that time limit.
Thank you. Good evening. My name is Rick Gardner. I'm the president of the Democratic Club of Camarillo. Our club is strongly opposed to allowing oil trains to transit through our beautiful city. We have several club members here. Please stand. Thanks. Phillips 66 Oil Refinery, northwest of Santa Maria in San Luis Obispo County, wants to extend its rail spur from the main line of the Union Pacific Railroad and to build a crude oil unloading facility. Once they've completed this project, as much as 10 million gallons of crude oil could be moving through our town every week on 5 1.5-mile-long trains. This crude oil could come from different North American sources, maybe Canadian tar sands, among the dirtiest oil on the planet, or it may be the highly volatile Bakken crude from the oil fields of North Dakota. This crude oil will be transported on tracks that are less than 100 feet from homes and businesses along Lewis Road. Even worse, this location is one of the few places in the county with a parallel track where the oil trains can be stopped while passenger trains pass by. There's a demonstrated potential for catastrophe. In the past year and a half, there have been 3 major derailments of trains carrying Bakken crude in a town in Quebec, Canada, as you've heard, and in Alabama and Virginia. The accident in Canada resulted in a fire and explosion, killing 47 people and destroying 30 downtown buildings. I've personally performed environmental risk and hazard assessments, both as a private consultant and as an engineer with the federal government. I might also note that I visited the Santa Maria refinery. Risk is calculated as a probability that an event may occur, multiplied by the consequences if it does occur. The draft environmental impact report claims that the probability of an accident is small. As a matter of record, that the consequences of an accident could be extreme, especially if Bakken oil is being transported, which is something the EIR apparently did not consider. In summary, we believe that it's unconscionable that we would knowingly expose our town to the kind of disaster that could occur in the event of an oil train accident. Your neighboring cities to the north and south along the track, Oxnard and Moorpark, have already gone on record opposing this project, along with the Ventura County Board of Supervisors, including Kathy Long, who represents Camarillo. We in the Democratic Club of Camarillo urge you to do the same, and we ask that you request the San Luis Obispo Planning Commission to deny the rail spur project at the Phillips 66 refinery. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Bill?
We will not have any clapping either or any other demonstrations as a result of speakers. We want to have an open debate without any manifestation of support or not support, just so that everyone has a chance to say what they want to say without
Intimidation.
Intimidation. Good point. All right. The next one is Todd Schumann. Schumann. Please, Tim.
Greetings. My name is Todd Schumann. I live here in Camarillo, on Camilar Drive. I'm representing the Ventura County Climate Hub, kind of a coalition of organizations in Ventura County. Hard to know quite what to say about this. I was going to say a lot of different things. I think the first thing I want to emphasize is there's a broader issue here. The mayor has kind of alluded to this potentially as a symbolic issue. That may be the case, but it's a very important symbolic issue. Our planet is baking, and actions that we take today can either encourage the kind of economy that will further bake the planet or discourage that kind of economy, and shift us into something that will allow us to deal with some of the climate changes that we have to deal with. We can make a stand on this by taking an action, by encouraging, by sending a letter to San Luis Obispo County. We can say, we don't want this kind of economy. We can discourage further development of the Canadian tar sands oil, which this refinery will be taking. This is the dirtiest oil on the planet. It probably generates up to a third to a half more carbon emissions than other kinds of oil, just through extraction and refining and destruction of the land and petroleum coke. It's kind of amazing when you look at it. So we can actually take a stand on that, and I think it's an important thing. We need to discourage this kind of development. We need to be promoting renewables, renewables, solar, wind. By encouraging the oil industry and making it cheaper, we just delay the transitions to the kind of economy that we need to make. So that's kind of the broader issue that I want to take, and a lot of communities are doing it. So it may be symbolic, but it's an important symbolic issue, and it's a chance for you to kind of weigh in on the future of life on this planet. So I encourage you to think a bit about this issue in a broader perspective. Got 1 minute. There's a couple things I want to bring up. You have a couple different approaches you can do. By doing nothing, you're essentially saying to San Luis Obispo, go ahead with this rail spur expansion. We don't care about it. We're fine with it. You can take that action. You can take the action of Oxnard and Moore Park and say, we don't want that. We don't want this kind of thing to happen. Don't approve it. There is a third action you could take. I discourage you from taking this kind of action. This is the kind of action that Simi Valley took. Simi Valley basically said, if you go ahead and approve this, condition it so that they have to use really good rail cars. That's a meaningless approach in my view. We can't require the federal government to require double-jacketed tankers to transport this kind of stuff. And even the cars that Phillips 66 says that they're going to approve, which are the latest, they're inadequate. The Lynchburg explosion took place using the most updated cars that have been approved by the Department of Transportation. So I discourage you from taking that approach. I encourage you to take the approach that was recommended by Rick Gardner. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker is Ron Whitehurst.
Thank you for the opportunity to address you. My name is Ron Whitehurst. I'm with the Ventura County Climate Hub, a group of organizations that is for clean energy, local food, and building community for resiliency. And I'm also representing the Citizens for Responsible Oil and Gas, which helps to watchdog the oil companies, make sure they're living up to their conditional use permits and such in the county. For Camarillo, there's several significant public safety issues here. The calculations of the risk, as I understand it, is that once in 20 years you would have an accident. The EIR states that the conditions of an accident are not mitigatable. That means, like, forget it. You have the usual scenario of 6 tanker cars, 180,000 gallons of this toxic crude oil that is often mixed with solvents to make it easier to transport. What fire department is geared up to deal with that? That's just a big mess. Basically, get people out of the way and let it burn. Then air pollution. There's 3 engines that will be pulling these trains. It's a lot of weight. There's a lot of diesel fuel exhaust that will be put out by these engines. So it's more traffic, more pollution from that standpoint. This crude oil will be vaporizing, volatilizing as it goes along. So it'll be these volatiles from the usual oil, which are include the BTEX materials, the benzene, ethylbenzene, toluene, and xylene, which are known by the state of California as Prop 65 chemicals that cause cancer and are teratogens. They cause birth defects. So there's some consequences locally. And then this oil will be coming largely from the Canadian tar sands crude and potentially from the Bakken. And in the tar sands in Canada, the first peoples, the First Nation peoples, were moved off of their traditional lands, and the lands were strip mined to get this tar sand that was extracted and then mixed with solvents and put on cars to transport. So then the water coming off of those lands is causing massive pollution downstream. And there's the burden on the neighbors in San Luis Obispo. So with this refinery expansion, they would have an extra burden. And as Mr. Morgan said, they're already in non-compliance as far as the air quality is concerned. So we ask you to please send a letter to oppose this expansion of the oil refinery in San Luis Obispo.
Thank you. I have one question, though.
Sure.
You said in your statement that this oil would be generally coming from the Canadian oil sands and the Bakken.
Right.
Now, I've been told by our staff that this plant can't use it unless there are significant changes to the operation and the equipment and whatever else. So,
As I understand it, the San Luis Obispo, or the Santa Maria refinery, is geared up to handle heavy crude. And so the Balkans crude is lighter crude. And so that would be, kind of like a little harder for them to deal with. If I understand it right, the Canadian tar sands crude is a heavier crude also, but it's also higher in some of the toxic things, like the sulfur and some of the heavy metals and such, so that it's messier to process. And there's no easy way for them to transport that tar sands crude, so they're getting quite a lot of it. And so word has it is that they're going to dump that on the market at, discount rates. So that as far as the economics of the situation, the tar sand crude would be one that would be, sold at a big discount. And then with the oil cars, you can move, as we heard, a couple million gallons of the crude on oil trains, so the economics of scale favor, transporting it by train. So that just looking at the economics of the situation, it would seem that a large part of the oil that would be, lowest in price, that would be attractive to come into the refinery would be the tar sands crude.
If you discount the cost of transporting it from North Dakota to Santa Maria.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you for your time.
The next card is from Carla Castillo on behalf of Senator Jackson.
Good evening. I'm here to read a statement on her behalf. Dear Mayor Little and honorable council members, as a senator for the District 19, which includes the city of Camarillo, I would like to add my voice in opposition to oil trains coming through Camarillo. Opposition has already been secured from the city councils of Oxnard and Moorpark, as well as from the Ventura County Board of Supervisors. Transporting volatile oil via train through our heavily populated communities is dangerous and unacceptable. In the past 18 months, we have seen train derailments, runaway trains, and massive explosions from oil trains near populated centers. We know that rail cars being used are not designed for transporting volatile oil, and that the length of the trains is disruptive to local car and passenger rail traffic. We also know that the trains can be parked near schools, hospitals, and playgrounds where toxic fumes are emitted. None of this is justifiable under any circumstance. Until we know with certainty that the track conditions, operating practices, and employ tank cars designed to ship flammable liquids, these oil trains have no business being routed through populated areas. At the very least, we have the right to know when the oil trains are coming, where and for what length of time they will be parked, and that our first responders are prepared for potential emergencies created by these flammable materials. Until then, we must say no to oil trains. Respectfully, Senator Hannah Beth Jackson. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Is there anyone else in the audience that wishes to be heard at this point in time? Okay, we'll move on back to the City Council.
I'll jump in. Yeah, I know this is not a popular thing, and I know that it's something that a lot of people have gotten involved in, but I tried to find as much information as I could. I found something from the California.gov website, the California Energy Commission, and I found an interesting statement on there. This is not about this. It's about California oil refineries in general. And there are 18 operational oil refineries in the state of California. We use a lot more oil than we're a big oil producer, but we also are a big oil user. We have a lot of people in the state who use oil in various ways. And it says, one thing it says in this statement from the You'll have to excuse me. I'm trying to get used to new glasses, and I don't know exactly where the reading line is. One paragraph here is interesting, and it says complex refineries that have the highest utilization rate at approximately 75%. That's the title of the paragraph. Utilization rate is the ratio of barrels input into the refinery to the operating capacity of the refinery. Complex refineries are able to produce a greater proportion of light products such as gasoline and operate near capacity because of California's large demand for gasoline, and they operate. Permitting issues. It is unlikely that new refineries will be built in California. In fact, from 1985 to 1995, 10 California refineries closed, resulting in a 20% reduction in refining capacity. Further refinery closures are expected for small refineries with capacities of less than 50,000 barrels a day. The cost of complying with environmental regulations and low product prices will continue to make it difficult to continue operating older, less efficient refineries. And I kind of got interested in oil refineries a few years ago. You might remember that they were trying to close one down in Bakersfield, and Senator Dianne Feinstein came out and seemed for some reason fought for it, and it was later turned over to Valero. But my comments, going back here, first of all, if we decide to write a letter, I believe that I certainly am not prepared to speak to any air quality issue in San Luis Obispo County, and I would not be able to support that kind of thing. I think we'd need a lot more information about something that's a long ways away from us. But I asked those questions, made those comments. So I'll just say that at least two people said they don't want oil trains going through Camarillo. There are already a lot of oil trains going through Camarillo, and there are a lot more than 5 trains per week going through Camarillo. I see them every day. There are no steep hills in Camarillo for runaway trains to gather speed. We don't have sharp curves, so I don't believe they're going to tip over and spill off. We don't have large bridges with trestle tracks for them to present a danger. Our weather is not the kind that creates frost or snow things or snow banks or anything like that. In my opinion, the 5 trains a week would not present much more of a significant danger to the residents of Camarillo than what's going through here right now. And we have no idea what's going through, but I can tell you there's a lot of dangerous stuff. They have and none of us have ever served on it, but because it's more of a staff thing. But there is a transportation committee that meets, and it looks at the stuff that's going on our highways and that's going on our train tracks and everything else through the county. And they're studying that. I don't know what they ever came up with or what recommendations they've ever made, but we get reports from them about twice a year, and I read those reports. But so far as I know, we've not had a problem. I also wonder if it didn't come by train, if they would somehow find a way to send it by truck, and I think that would present an even bigger problem. In my opinion, this is just an attempt by somebody who's getting a lot of people worked up to close down the refinery. And while I firmly believe that alternative sources of fuel are a worthy goal and something we all need to work toward, we all need to work at buying things that will, and using things that will use those alternative sources of fuel. We're not there yet. And I don't think this is the time to do that. So I would support doing nothing.
Your Honor. Yes, Kevin.
Yeah, I tried to keep an open mind on this when I was trying to study this. And listening to the report, I do have some concerns on this, and I do think it is a public safety issue, specifically for Camarillo residents. I'm not aware, and I've lived here a long time, it may have happened, it may not, I'm not aware of ever having a train of this magnitude with this many barrels of oil and the weight that they potentially could be transporting here. And I understand that it's an 0.29% probability of anything happening with a derailment, but if one does happen, it's a significant environmental issue that would present ourselves to our community here. Look, I burn oil too. I drive cars. I'm not trying to be hypocritical on this, but in my mind, there's got to be better ways to transport oil than the rail with the specific rail system that we've got in place right now. And I do think that we ought to send a letter of opposition on a, if nothing else, a public safety issue that this would create if, in fact, that there ever will be an issue with a derailment here.
Okay. Which, Councilman McDonald, if you'd like to make a comment?
Well, I agree with Mr. Kildee. I think that from the public safety standpoint, that alone is a reason to express our concerns. That is one long train. I know we have trains going through here, and it's always bothered me that we don't really know sometimes what's in some of those containers or tankers. But we sit in a situation where Mrs. Craven is correct. We don't have some of the dangers you find in other locations, but those tracks go awfully close to an awful lot of our homes. And I think that alone is a reason that it truly is a public safety and something we need to be concerned about. I do have one question, and I don't know if Mr. Norman knows the answer to it. And maybe I misunderstood one of the speakers. I know that there's pollution from a train as it goes through, but is there emissions coming out of those tanks themselves, or are they totally sealed?
I don't have any information on that.
Okay, it would be interesting to know. I mean, obviously, that poses another problem if it's emitting something from the tankers. But anyway, I would truly support sending a letter expressing opposition and concern. I think there's enough things that we've talked about that you could get some good points in there that at least we don't get to make the decision, but at least we brought it to the attention of those who can make this decision that it does indeed affect communities on down the line and that we really are concerned.
Mr. Morgan?
This is different. I'm not anti-oil by a long shot because we haven't found alternatives yet to power our country. We're getting there, and it will get there. But until that happens, we can't just cut oil off. You have no plastic, all kinds of things that you rely on for oil. But there's several things that made California grow. One was water. We got water from the river, got water from here and there. We grew. Hollywood, gold, and oil. Those are some of the biggest products that made this state grow and what it is today. You know, there's along our route. I don't look at this as a anti-oil thing. I look at it as a safety measure. If you go along our highway there, along Lewis Road, you've got 3 churches, 1 synagogue, you've got a freeway interchange, you've got thousands of homes within 100 feet of this. We just had a crash the other day that hit someone, tried to get through and hit the wrong thing, ran into it and caused a big fire. And how many people were killed? That was just last week. Several people were killed in that train.
Where? Here?
Yes, not here. It just happened last week. It was East Coast.
Oh, you said we. I thought.
Anyway, we as a nation had one happen last week where they just ran into the train and big explosion, people were killed. These things can happen. Anything can happen on an accident on a railroad. We had one over here in Moore Park. Crash. People were killed over in Moore Park. That's about, what, 5 years ago, 7 years ago?
Moore Park, it was
And that was because of an accident. Well, accidents happen. And if you've got an accident that close to homes, it kind of makes you worry. It's a concern for me as a councilman that we are not, we can be safe. We want people to feel safe around our railroads. Noise, 5 more large trains. And if 2 of those, if one train covers 2 railroads, I don't know of any I've ever seen cover 2 railroad intersections. I've never seen that happen here, and I've lived here 52 years. That's a long train, but you've got you get noise things going on in both places. Well, it just adds more noise. Two more are there's 3 of those. You can hear them all the way down the line. So you've got 6 times, that's 30 more a day of honking horns and so on and so forth, and sometimes stopping traffic, like you said, Charlotte. Stop traffic for a long time, you waited. If we have no guarantee on what can come through here, as far as how many trains, we don't know. What I don't understand is why they aren't looking at alternative ways, not cars, not trucks, because those can turn over more accidents on trucks and trains, but you have pipelines. And you can have one that goes almost straight, well, not straight there, but comes through past Robles, that area right there. Or there's another one, Santa Margarita, has a valley there that things could go through to get to that pretty quickly. Now, Charlotte, you talked about there's 250 more trains would go in through San Luis Obispo into that terminal. Yes, I would be concerned if I were in that county. 250 more mile-long trains? That would bother me. So I think you have to think about, when you can't just disregard the county and what they feel like. Sometimes you can on some things, but this one here is major impact, 250 more trains. So I would support a letter against this, but also try to make another suggestion. What about a pipeline, which I'm all in favor of, keeping it underground?
Okay, thank you. Well, I have listened to this. First of all, Mike, the 250 trains is over a year's time, and so I'm not sure that.
That's in addition to the trains that are going there right now.
And that's one of my points is that we have a lot of trains going through, and I do know that trains are long because I happen to be on the east side of town and get to those crossings quite frequently, and I've waited for long freight trains to go through. So we do have long trains, so that's not an issue with me. The concern I have is frankly twofold. One is that whatever we're doing here is in fact symbolic because it just simply isn't going to be part of the official record that on this matter. Number 2 is that our conversations, frankly, are trying to create a world that perhaps we all like to come to, but it's not going to happen in, at least not in my lifetime, and that is to reduce the dependence on carbon products. It's just not going to happen right away. We need to understand that and deal with it. I don't think the tracks are in bad shape. I've seen the passenger trains go through there a lot faster than what these freight trains are going through on the tracks. So I don't think the tracks are. I've not heard that they're in any unsafe conditions. And if we try to regulate trains, why shouldn't we try to regulate the 101? We have 125 to 150,000 cars, trucks, and God knows what else goes through here on a 24-hour basis every day. And I'm sure that there's products on those things that could, if something happened, could cause significant damage to not only to the people on that freeway, but to the surrounding areas. So I don't think you can stop everything, and I don't think it's. If I thought it would make some sense to stop this project, us taking some action, then that might make some difference. But the hearing is closed. My guess is they're not going to approve it, and I just don't think we ought to get ourselves involved in it. So that's my comments.
Bill, can I say one thing? Just one little thing.
Yeah.
Those, I could just name all the stuff that's made out of oil. That until you can find some things to replace, on our bodies, I took that off my body. If you can find a credit card, if you can find something else to take the place of oil, then maybe we as a nation can turn a different direction, and we will someday. But you can't do it overnight. You've got to give it time. As the Chinese say, they get patience of a Chinese, but they get there. So I think we have to consider that.
Sounds like you're supporting my idea, but
no, I agreed with you, Mr. Bill Little. I just said in this case, all these things going through our city next to our houses, I don't agree.
Your Honor, could I make one comment on what you said? Personally, I read every letter that I get And if it's not, even if it's not part of our public hearing documentation and something comes in late, I still read it. So it may not be part of that official public hearing record, but I'm assuming somebody somewhere is going to read our letter. It's not just going to go into the
Oh, I'm sure they'll
chute
read it.
somewhere. So I don't think it's totally symbolic. I think hopefully someone will read it.
Okay. All right, what's the pleasure?
Your Honor.
Yes.
Counselor, can I make a motion? I know he said to give staff direction, or could I direct staff?
Let me check to see what we said on the agenda.
Provide direction to staff regarding the project.
Yeah, you could make a motion to provide direction to if it's providing direction to staff.
Okay,
yes.
I make a motion that we do write a letter of opposition to this for the various reasons that have been articulated tonight. With the public safety issue, perhaps formulated by the city manager and signed by the mayor.
Is this on items that pertain to Camarillo or going on air quality in San Bernardino?
No, this is just the items that pertain to the city of Camarillo as far as.
And this has nothing to do with air quality. I want you to know that, because
So it's the public safety issue
It's the
that
public safety with.
Is there a
I
second?
will second that one.
There's a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? Not, please vote. Motion is approved 3-2. That brings us to the end of this 5 o'clock agenda, which we're now well into 6:30. So we will recess until 7:30. Thank you. Call the meeting of the City Council at Camarillo to order. The record show that all members are present.
Is Bill on?
Is your microphone on, Bill?
Sorry. Probably isn't. There we are. Okay.
He got two to open.
I know it. All right. Flag salute. Mr. Morgan, would you like to give the flag salute?
everyone please rise. Place your hand over your heart. Ready, begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. All right. First item is presentations, and I have both a pleasant and a sad duty on that tonight. We're going to recognize our outgoing police commander, Guy Stewart, who is moving up into the hierarchy of the police administration. So, Guy, would you come over and join me over here? Congratulations. Guy has been the police chief of Camarillo for 2 years. 2 years. He has 30 years on the force, and has done. I've got a list here of about 20 things. Looks like it's about everything you can be except for the sheriff. But he's been in charge of the detention facilities, pre-trial, the Todd Road facility, court services, legal unit, special services, aviation search and rescue, records and aviation unit, charge of crime analysis, property and unit, forensic science laboratory, intelligence unit, minor crimes, narcotics, Sheriff's Systems Bureau, the SWAT team, and tactical negotiations unit. Is there anything that you haven't done?
No, that's covered it all.
Okay. Just want to make sure. But he's now going to join the Sheriff's Command Office as a assistant sheriff, and you will have charge of?
I'll be taking over two of the divisions for the sheriff's office, all the detention services, and then all of our special investigative units at our special services, which again includes the aviation unit, homicide, narcotics, and intelligence, a lot of those same units that you just spoke about.
Well, you know, Camarillo has had a great record of having very highly qualified commanders who've been our police chief and have moved on to larger jobs within the sheriff's department, and Guy is certainly no exception to that group of people. So, Guy, on behalf of the City Council and the citizens of this community, I want to give you, in recognition of dedicated service, a plaque with the tile of the City of Camarillo, and keep that on your wall and keep reminding to come back and visit us. You'd like to say a few words?
Yeah. Thank you, Mayor. Just real quick, I wanted to say thank you to the council and City Manager Bruce Fang for the opportunity. Individual success doesn't come unless there's a fantastic team around you, and I just felt blessed to be part of this team here in Camarillo. One thing I do want to say is I've been just totally impressed by being able to come to Camarillo and really learn kind of what city government is all about, and how, and the biggest thing I walk away from is how complicated and sophisticated that it is. And my hat truly is off to the council as far as your professionalism, your knowledge, and how well read and how up to date you are on every topic and issue out there, and also just the sheer fact that you always try to do the right thing. Lots of debate, but the bottom line is you always try to do the right thing. I also want to compliment the city staff. I think you guys are a fantastic group. One of probably the smartest teams I've ever been involved in, and it was just a lot of fun. I appreciate that you accepted me to be part of the team, and again, it was very enjoyable from the very beginning. And personally, Bruce, thank you for all the advice and the guidance. Being a new chief of police, it was invaluable. And the thing I want to end with last is I just want to say thank you for the friendships. That's most important to me, and you always made me feel like I was a friend, both council and staff. So thank you very much.
Does the council have any comments they'd like to make? Charlotte?
Yeah, I think you did a splendid job. Thank you.
Yeah, Guy, I'd like to, you're part of the Commander alumni now of Camarillo, and you're one of the best. And, that's a really tall tale order for everybody that comes in here. And I especially appreciate you working with our budget, Guy. I know that, the police services are a large part of our general budget, and you were always willing to work with us on this and provide what I consider excellent service. And from a personal point of view, Guy, I want to tell you that I really appreciate that you dress nicely. You wear your clothes well, and I can appreciate that, Guy.
You wouldn't be selling them to him, would you? Mike?
We've had, I don't know how many we've had since I've been here 34 years, but a lot of commanders.
9, I think.
Yeah,
I
something
was
like
just
that.
counting
But
up.
with that in there, there's a couple that spent a long time. If you had been here longer than 2 years, right now you're already in that category, good category, but you'd have been one of those that we'd try to keep. We'd try to go after the chief and see if he let us keep you.
Who says we didn't?
Dan?
Well, I too want to thank you for a great job. It's been a pleasure working with you, and I think most of all, we all call you friend, and we really appreciate that. Really are part of the family. We invite you back to Camarillo whenever you want to come, but not on the professional basis, because when I hear what you're in charge of now, we don't want any of that. So you keep that all somewhere else, but you come back anytime and see us, and we wish you the best, and congratulations on a great promotion. You'll do a great job. Sheriff's lucky.
Right. Congratulations. Okay.
Here we are.
We have Public comments. We got some public comments here. This is Cynthia Rodriguez. Is that correct, or? There, I can't.
I believe
read
it's
that.
Clydia Richardson.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good evening.
It's on.
Speak right into that mic or we can't hear what you say.
Okay. Thanks for allowing me to speak tonight. On a positive note, I really want to say thank you for the trolley. It's really amazing. It's provided a great service to a lot of people that operate on a budget, and it's been great for tourism, which brings me to my next topic. I'm here because Saturday I was helping a customer looking out the window of my store, and I saw my tire was getting tagged. And so I'm here to raise the question as to whether or not I noticed taking a walk thereafter, speaking to the officer, that there were signs posted, 4 of them on the boulevard that say 2-hour parking. So I posed the question, is that going to be enforced and when? And I just really want to express my concern. I have 2 stores, and that of which one opened a year ago, the other 7 years ago. I mentioned this when I was here before. And the economics in this last year has been very difficult. A lot of people are coming to the Old Town, Camarillo area, out of the area, Newbury Park, Thousand Oaks, Agora, Calabasas. There's a big influx of business traffic that's coming from people driving to be able to stroll the boulevard. 2-hour parking will completely crash that. People aren't going to go to a restaurant and walk out of the restaurant and think, well, let me move my car before I could walk down to the boutique, or let me move my car before I could walk down the coffee shop that's at the end of the road. So I don't know where all of this is at, but I came tonight to kind of sit in for the oil train matter that came up, and I thought, oh, wait a minute, there's another issue. So thank you for allowing me to speak. I don't want to be a thorn in your side, but I really do ask that you take this into consideration. 3 businesses have closed in the last calendar month on the boulevard. So thank you for your time.
Your Honor?
Yes.
I'm sorry. Sometimes you speak high and sometimes you speak low. Could you tell us exactly
I'm
what it
nervous.
is you're asking about? I didn't catch it. I'm
Okay.
sorry. We'll give you time.
There's 4 signs on the boulevard. They're not clearly marked. I didn't even know they were there. And they say 2-hour parking. Is that going to be enforced? And when? Is there any way for there to be a consideration for it not to be enforced right now? It is not a good strategy for Old Town Camarillo and the businesses to succeed or thrive or welcome people to come and spend the day. There's a new organization. Its basis is it's a friendly Camarillo. Come, shop, enjoy the food.
What block are those signs in?
Well, I walked the boulevard. I saw one in front of Bandits Barbecue.
And from what now?
In front of Bandits Barbecue, which is, it's middle of the way. It's about 2 doors north of Bandits Barbecue. There's another one that is in between Green Goddess, my other store at the other end, and the bank. It's right smack in the middle. There's 2 other signs. I believe one of them is over in front of, on the opposite side of the El Rey area, closer to the tire store. I don't clearly recall the 3rd and the 4th, so I shouldn't.
So they're up and down both sides of the boulevard. Is that what you're saying?
Mm-hmm.
In the
Yes,
several
sir.
blocks that constitute the
Yes.
business area.
Yes.
Frankly, I wasn't aware that there was.
I wasn't either. Tom, they've been out there for years, I believe.
They've been there for years, and there's some on Palm. There's other places besides that, because some people come and park all day and leave their car there. And it chokes out businesses when they can't have parking. And so part of that's to help business.
Your Honor, you are correct that those signs have been there for many years, and they were originally installed because of requests from some businesses to provide higher turnover parking to serve their particular business needs at the time. However, we can always go back and survey the situation to see if conditions have changed, and we can review the parking requirements to see if they're still appropriate or should be reconsidered.
Well, time parking, it cuts both ways. It not only gets rid of the all-day parker, but it gets rid of the shopper, too, after a certain period of time, unless you want to.
Certainly, if that was the only type of parking available, and we do have a parking mix of requirements in Old Town, and the idea was to have parking to really meet all needs. But that can certainly be reviewed if that's your direction.
Well, may I add one thing? If you drive up and down the boulevard Monday through Thursday, it's pretty quiet. There's really not a parking issue. There's more open parking now than ever before. Friday, Saturday, Sunday, or not Sunday, but Friday and Saturday, it's busier. It's gets packed. But maybe if I can be so bold to suggest, if there could be some enforcement that the employees or the business people have to park their cars somewhere else, I think that would be very helpful. But again, thank you kindly for letting me speak here, and I really can't express enough for you to consider this as well.
Okay.
Thank
Your
you.
Honor, while I know this is public comment and it's not a agendized item, I will just offer some input on that last comment, and that is when places, public streets and parking are held open to the public, we cannot specify different groups of the public can and others can't have access to it. Everybody has to have equal access. However, through the chamber, the business community in Old Town can work together to encourage the employees to find other parking spaces if that is so needed to accommodate patrons. But that would be really, I think, a better forum is through the chamber to manage something like that.
Maybe we could refer this to the city manager to contact the chamber and see if there's some coordination that they could give to encouraging the business owners and employees to park off the main part of town.
Your Honor, I think that's fine, but that doesn't address the 2-hour parking. Maybe it's time to look at that again.
Is it actually going to be enforced? That's the other thing. People are so used to parking there, and it was told to me the signs have been there. I wasn't aware of them being there for that length of time. So are they actually in the process of enforcing it?
If you were ticketed, I guess they're enforcing it.
Apparently so.
I wasn't ticketed.
Oh, I thought you, I'm sorry.
I asked the gentleman if they were going to ticket me, could I move my car, that I wasn't aware of anything of that nature taking place. And he said, I'm not ticketing. I said, well, should I move my car today?
Okay.
And I said, can you please talk to the person that you need to and let me know if they're going to start ticketing or not. We'll let our customers know. And he spoke to his sergeant, and they didn't really know exactly what was taking place.
Okay.
I believe the police chief has something he'd like to say on this matter.
Okay.
Guy, would you come forward? And thank you very much.
I believe what we're seeing is the signs have been in place for a long time, so we always enforce when we have the available personnel. Just been recently that our traffic cadets, we are fully staffed again, and one of their primary responsibilities is to go out and enforce parking. So it's probably directly related to us being fully staffed with our parking enforcement. And so they're out there, and they're going to, again, enforce the signs, and probably with some lacks when we've only have 1 or 2, but now we're fully staffed with 3. So they'll be out there probably more aggressively enforcing the parking ordinances.
Is there a feeling that the council wants to have someone look into the time?
I would like them to. We may decide to keep them, but I think it's time to review it.
Okay.
I think, we could look into that, but as a business owner, it appeared to me that 2 hours is a long time to park in one stall. But I'm certainly willing to look at it and see if there's any updates or whatnot that we need to do.
Your Honor, the chamber, last time been a long time since we talked about this, they were in favor of that because people were parking in front of their stores and staying there all day.
Well, I don't think it's for discussion tonight, but I would like to
We're
have a
making
time when we
comments,
can
Charlotte, like
discuss
you
it.
did. I'm just saying what happened with Chamber.
I'm just saying I'd like to bring it up for a full discussion.
Jan?
May I ask, when you bring it back, let's talk also about if they're clear enough to designate where you can park and can't park, because it sounds like if we have 4 signs, how do you know what it's really covering?
There's more than 4.
Yeah.
There's more
Okay,
than 4.
we'll ask the city manager to take that under study. Okay, thank you. All right, we have Matthew Lorimer.
My name is Matt Lorimer. I'm the HOA president. I'm here tonight for 2 issues. I asked for the Public Records Act for different documents because we're not being kept in contact. Obviously, we've had problems with the owner of the park. The city council asked the city manager to work with the residents and the park owner about the rent increase. IPG Amber said, bring us an offer, bring us an offer. We gave them, we worked through that process. They basically came back and did nothing. Last week, you're going to turn to the second page. This is an email. Basically, Amber's boasting that she's going to send managers around to the mobile home park and try to push a long-term lease, which is a violation of the mobile home residency law 798.23. Then, when she made this comment on the email at 2:53 p.m., December 4th, 2014, the city manager basically said, within 13 minutes, he responded, great on long-term lease modifications, hopefully will be better option than rent control. That is biased. The city council appointed basically the city manager to be a go-between, not to agree with the owner of a mobile home park, and it doesn't sound good, especially when this person is supposed to report to you in a couple weeks and have a non-biased decision. We feel this is biased, and this calls for a review of an outside review of the city manager's comments. We find it offensive and not proper at all. Second thing we want to talk about, the Rent Review Board hearing. Regarding the decision on December 29, 2014, the recommendation monthly leases will have the same 5% subject to all starting in February of 2014. Please see December 2014 document 37, which is in your packet, and it says, did not mail a copy of effective tenants by recommendation. The rest of the month-to-month leases could appear. This is a violation procedure of the Rent Review Board. They never informed, as stated by the letter, section 1050.060, the rental review procedures. There's a lot of things that weren't done correctly, and basically, we weren't given an opportunity even to know about that hearing. And for the Rent Review Board to arbitrarily say that we're going to pass that on to everybody, that basically says don't bother to come because we've already made our decision. That's bias in decision. They've made a lot of errors. I've documented them. Unfortunately, I only get 3 minutes, so we will continue this topic in 2 weeks from now. I can't believe how people are treated. You know, people in Camarillo deserve better from city government, and this is atrocious, everything that has occurred here. It's unfair, it's biased, and it deserves a review.
Okay, thank you. Terry Bray. Thank you.
Okay. Sorry I didn't give those to Jeffrey at the beginning. My name is Terry Bray, resident of Lamplighter Mobile Home Park, Via Centra. I am the Golden State Manufacturer Homeowner League president of Chapter 616, Lamplighter Mobile Home Park. I just made a bullet point list of things that we have a personal concern over. Matt has glazed over some. One of the major things that came up was the recent Rent Review Board hearings. and that the written policy for even asking for that review to take place was completely bypassed. As of a couple days ago, the policy of the procedures have not changed. 25% signatures were not required for the rent raises that took place. And the lack of notification to homeowners and apartment dwellers that the policy can be circumvented is somewhat of a discriminatory decision that's unknown as to who authorized that in the city. The Rent Review Board, as you know, is under your guise, and so what they do represents you. Let's see, I'm going to try and not be redundant of what Mr. Lorimer has brought up. The documents that were submitted by IPG, I as of yet have not been supplied those. I did request the minutes of the meeting and such, which I assume whatever was submitted for that hearing, for that determination to be made, would be supplied in addition to the overall transactions that took place in those two hearings. It was a first convening and a reconvening for the same cases. I wasn't supplied that documentation. When the Rent Review Board met to deal with the initial rent raise of about 3.5 years ago with IPG, the Rent Review Board found that the documentation submitted was mostly inflated. We do not have that documentation to make an analysis on that. It wasn't provided to us. We weren't notified of these hearings. And what's most alarming is that we are supposed to be in negotiations on the long-term leases and other issues. And so for that to take place without notification to either the homeowner association or GSMOL chapter is very disappointing, alarming, and we found it rather insulting. There are so many other things to go over, but I'm going to, I gave you a copy of what I was going to hit upon tonight. The big concern is the amount of email communications that are going on between IPG and your city manager that we are not included in. I have also inquired with the city attorney the status of the long-term rent stabilization ordinance progress. I've never been responded to. I have copied the city manager on those inquiries. He hasn't contacted me either. So we're not following what you guys directed.
Okay.
And we're trying.
I believe the rent review met because there was petitions for hearings, wasn't there?
That's correct.
Okay. So that's why they met, provided by petitioners living in Lamplighter Park.
If you review the policy required to be able to be heard by the Rent Review Board, you need a minimum of 25% of signatures of homeowners that experience the same rent increase. Those petitions were not provided. Yet the Rent Review Board heard these two hearings, and that's circumventing the written policy as designated by the Rent Review Board via the City Council.
Then
so we don't know who authorized it to take place.
What are we supposed to do with the two petitions? Do we just ignore them because there's not 25% sign on?
Mm-hmm. It's unfortunate if you want to call it ignoring. I did bring it to the City Council's attention prior that it's a antiquated policy that people cannot meet because of the way the rent increases take place on a percentage. The rent increases are based on anniversary dates, which happen all through the year. So I brought to the attention of the City Council that it is a policy that we cannot follow. So if there's been modifications made, and you now are saying, well, yeah, it's archaic and we can't use it this way, we need to be notified that we can go ahead and petition on an individual basis. Nobody was notified, and it was through hearsay as to how the chapter found out and how the homeowner association found out that those two hearings were going to take place. We could have represented, we could have assisted, we could have voiced, we could have something. It was unbeknownst to the park in general that you even had the opportunity to go as an individual and contest your rent. We're trying to play by the policy that's set up by the City Council, which is followed by the Rent Review Board. And when we're not told that there's an exception, that's not right.
Do you, Terry, in case it were changed, do you think it's better to have anybody any time? Because then you don't have to worry about anniversary date, other people, it would be even better if two people or whatever could go do that. Wouldn't that be better?
There needs to be a change to make it as an opportunity for homeowners to contest whatever they feel is inappropriate in cost increases. I can see the domino effect that you certainly don't want to have a rent review board inundated with 227 homeowners, or even, let's say, 25% of that. But there needs to be a change that even apartment dwellers can contest their increases, because the rent review board is the determining party for apartment dwellers as well as mobile home parks. So yes, how exactly it should be written, I don't have an answer, but right now the issue is, how did these two homeowners be able to submit the contesting of the rent increase and not follow the policy as written?
Well,
I would like to know. I'm putting a request out there. I'd like to know who authorized that and why.
I can comment if
yes.
Okay.
City Clerk.
We received 3 petitions in November. In fact, the way the code reads is that if an increase is noticed that applies park-wide, it requires the 25% signature requirement. At the time, IPG was actually on a monthly basis analyzing their increases and noticing them each month uniquely, depending on what they calculated the increase should be. So we received 3 petitions. Each one of them received a different noticed increase. Therefore, the increase did not apply park-wide, and therefore it didn't meet the 25% requirement. And in fact, I had a conversation with Terry at the time when the hearings were scheduled, and the park was aware of it, and we had a conversation about why the hearings were noticed that way.
Okay.
My question of clarification is, when you said the park was notified of it, does that mean IPG was notified of it?
Just means that you and I had a conversation.
Right.
I talked to several other people in the park that were aware of the hearings, and the people that petitioned were noticed, and IPG was noticed.
Okay. So basically that means that when I found out about the hearings, I questioned about the process. The hearings were already in process of taking place.
Well,
so I don't want to be redundant. I think you heard clearly where I'm coming from. If you do review your policy, again, it's how did they qualify as the policy is written. The biggest concern.
Your Honor, I think I might be able to provide a little input on this. Okay. The section in question is section 10.50.060, B like boy, petitions. The first sentence reads, a park tenant or tenant receiving notice of a proposed rent increase may petition the commission for review of the proposed rent increase, which is what happened here. You had, I think, 2 or 3. And then the next sentence says, if the proposed rent increase is to affect a majority of park tenants or tenants, the petition must be signed by more than 25% of the park tenants or tenants affected by the increase. So if there had been a rent increase that was going to affect 50% or more of the residents, then there would have been a need for 25%. But here, since the proposed rent increase was affecting these individuals, they were entitled to file the petition.
I think that's the answer to it.
That's it.
So then am I to understand that the determination as stated by the Rent Review Board, as written, that the 5% increase beginning in February 2015 until the next anniversary date, that applies to all month-to-month leases in the park, that means that we need to get a 25% petition going to contest what the Rent Review Board has approved?
I think at this point, since it's a public comment, it's not an item on the agenda, that to have we've already been at this for 10 minutes on this issue. We've probably exceeded the scope of what public comment allows, and it should be put as an agenda item. And it's also my understanding that the intention is to have further discussion regarding mobile homes at an upcoming meeting. I believe it's presently scheduled for February 25th.
That's correct.
Okay, we'll take it up at February 25th.
Your Honor, before we leave this item, in looking at some of the documentation that was just handed to us, I suddenly found my name, and I'd just like to make it perfectly clear that I have not been in contact with Amber in any way, shape, or form. So I noticed you underlined it and so forth. So.
Yeah, nor did I state that there was a $30 charge coming down the pike to the residents if a playground was put into place.
I just want you to know that everybody.
I appreciate that. That's why I'm supplying documentation, because there's a lot of things being said that are very misleading and very concerning.
Okay, we've exceeded the time. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Sure. Okay, we have one more. Renee.
Hello. My name is Renee Imzon, and I'm the secretary at the Lamplighter Mobile Home Park. Just to follow up on what Terry was talking about, if two people can petition and make a change, well, two people did petition and made a change. I received a letter from IPG saying that these two people petitioned, and it was voted by the Rent Review Board to increase by 5%, but they made it sound like it was a park-wide decision. So I received a letter stating that the decision had already been made, and I felt like, well, why even fight it, because it was already made. So IPG was kind of misrepresenting if it was in fact just a, an individual decision. They're representing it as a park-wide thing, and they've kind of fooled a lot of people in the park to think that they're stuck with a 5% that's already been made, and then they're handing out these long-term leases, saying, well, you can choose to go with the 5% that's already been made, or we can cut this deal and give you a long-term lease that's only at 3.5%. And they've been feeding this to people. I almost signed it, and it's completely unfair. And they're totally misrepresenting the city council, and it's just crazy. So that's all I have to say.
Thank you.
Sorry about that, but that wasn't our representation. No.
Okay, well, we're going to have a hearing on this on the end of this month. Is that right?
25th.
25th.
Not really a public hearing.
No, but a discussion of the...
a thorough discussion.
Thorough discussion. So we'll obviously allow people to speak, so we'll take it up again. Okay, that's all of the comment cards. If not, we'll proceed to the public hearing. It's an ordinance amending the Camarillo Municipal Code zoning ordinance regarding Chapter 19.68 modifications. David?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Tonight we're going to be discussing zoning permit modifications, and first we need to answer why we need a better approach to zoning permit modifications. Well, first of all, modifications can be expensive for the applicant. A major modification is over $6,000 to process, a minor modification over $1,400. Modifications can also be time-consuming for the applicant and the staff. A major modification requires a notice of public hearing at the Planning Commission. It takes 4 to 6 weeks. The process and decision points are currently confused. A major modification, though the term is commonly used, is not a defined term in the municipal code. Also, administrative minor modifications, they are tightly defined in the zoning code, but in practice, interpretations have been varied. We have a standard condition of approval that is used in the Community Development Department for development permits and conditional use permits that says, the Director of Community Development may approve minor changes. Any substantial change shall require the filing of a modification application to be considered by the Planning Commission. Well, although this is a helpful safety valve for use by the Director, there's nothing in the municipal code that authorizes this level of discretion. So what we're proposing is to define 3 levels of modification approval in the zoning code. In one code section that classifies the level of approval for 3 different types of modifications, the first being an administrative permit adjustment, the second being an administrative minor modification, and the third being a major modification. So starting with the lowest level of approval, this would be the administrative permit adjustment. It would allow changes up to 10% of the size of a building up to 5,000 square feet and its accessory structures and require minimum landscaping. The landscaping something that can be done under an administrative permit adjustment would be landscaping conversion to artificial turf and drought-tolerant themes as allowed by our recently readopted landscape and irrigation guidelines. Also, minor exterior architectural changes, not changing the basic architectural style. This actually comes up a lot. And it can be due to things like suppliers just don't make the type of window that was specified by the architect. And they're minor enough to where most people it doesn't change the architectural style of the building. Also allow for the placement of ancillary mechanical equipment that does not create a disturbance. And minor changes to the approved site plan, including the addition of ancillary structures that do not affect the placement of the primary structure on the site or reduce the number of parking spaces required. This level of approval would require only a zoning clearance. These are generally over the counter. They cost $610 or $102 if the homeowner pulls the permit. And currently there is no fee for landscape conversion due to the drought. Council took that action in 2014. The next level of approval is something we're familiar with, and that's the administrative minor modification. Currently, Chapter 19.68 of the Zoning Code is the administrative minor modification section, and it allows for changes for code, and we're also proposing changes for code consistency, and would be proposing moving some text to other chapters where it's more appropriate. The administrative minor modification can be granted if there's no conflict with the zoning code or the environmental documentation prepared for the original development permit and would not have an adverse effect on surrounding properties. Minor modifications would be limited to the reduction of yards and distance between buildings by not more than 20% of the requirement of the zone, reduction in the number of required commercial and industrial parking spaces by not more than 10%, adjustment of allowed building height and minimum front yard on parcels with an 8% or more grade, modification of approved landscaping plan for commercial and industrial buildings, and the height of entrance walls and gates may be modified when approved by the Architectural Review Committee, and modification of requirements of the trash enclosure ordinance when a hardship is created. This would require a minor modification application and fee, and these are processed generally less than 14 days after the acceptance of a completed application, and they cost approximately $1,400. Finally, major modification. We are proposing to now define the major modifications as all other modifications not classified as administrative permit adjustments or minor modifications. Major modifications must be approved by the body that approved the permit, such as the Planning Commission, or if it went to appeal, then the City Council. And it's subject to the same public hearing and review criteria as the original permit. Generally takes about 4 to 6 weeks to process and currently costs $6,800 approximately. In terms of procedures, the director may refer any architectural design modification request to the Architectural Review Committee for review and determination of approval, denial, or modification of the request if the director so chooses. And also, the director may refer any application directly to the Planning Commission to advise the director as to the application's proper level of approval, or may refer to the Planning Commission for review and determination of approval, denial, or modification of the request. For a minor modification, the director must determine that modifications are necessary to make a reasonable use of the land, that there is adequate protection for health, safety, and welfare, and which may include conditions of approval that the director may impose, and the director must make a decision within 14 days after, this says filing of application. The language we're proposing is after the acceptance of a complete application. And then the applicant may appeal to the Planning Commission where the determination will be final. For a major modification, the Planning Commission decision may be appealed to the City Council, and the City Council can order a review of the Planning Commission's decision similar to the original approval. In terms of where we've been and where we're going, the City Council heard this proposal first in a study session on December 10th, 2014. It was then referred to the Planning Commission Ordinance Committee and heard January 6th, and then recommended to the Planning Commission, which was in January 2015, which brings us to this evening. If the Council approves the ordinance amendment tonight, and assuming a second hearing at subsequent City Council meeting, then we'd be looking at enactment of this ordinance on March 27th, 2015. And that concludes staff's report.
Okay. Any questions by the staff, by council? Hearing none, we will open the public hearing and ask if anyone wishes to appear before the council to ask. Seeing no one, we will close the public hearing and proceed to request a reading of the title.
You want comment?
I'm sorry. Yeah, you have any comments? Anyone like to make a comment?
Well, I would. I think that this is written in a way that there's still some controls in place, but will speed up some of the process on the minor ones. My only thought is we got to make sure we know our director of community development really well so we don't end up with purple buildings. That was a joke. But
Joe's even more conservative than I am.
Oh, is he? Okay.
I might allow purple buildings, but he won't even, yeah.
Okay, well, then we're safe. We know we got one that, but, you know, and you've got the appeal process in there, too. So we just have to, as we always do, make good decisions. But I think it is helpful in the public being able to work through the process.
Mike, did you have a question?
I
or
think
a comment?
we're now in much better understanding of these different levels. Before, even we had trouble wondering why is it going to that level, and now I think it lets us have a chance to understand better, than we did before. So thank you.
I think also it does streamline the process here, which is a really good thing.
Charlotte?
I think it's all been said. I think this is going to be beneficial.
I tend to concur. So if there's no other questions or comments, we'll ask the city attorney to read the title.
This is ordinance number 1104, an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Camarillo, California, amending Chapter 19.68, Administrative Minor Modifications, to Title 19, Zoning of the Camarillo Municipal Code.
Move to waive further reading of the ordinance and introduce.
Second.
Moved and seconded. We motion to waive further reading and introduce the ordinance. If there's any questions, if not, please vote. Motion carries 5-0. That concludes the public hearing and that action. You'll be back for the second reading in 2 weeks or so?
Yes, at the next meeting.
Okay. All right. Departmental 2014-15 mid-year budget report. Let the record show that the council had a study session on this matter and asked a number of questions and discussion of the various changes that were presented to the budget and to the various funds within the budget. So can we have a staff report on this?
Oh, I'm going to open up, I'll reconvene the CAMSAN.
Thank you,
as well.
Honorable Mayor, members of the council, as well as the sanitary district in your respective places. We did have a study session on this, as was indicated. So we used the fund summary contained in your agenda report to walk you through the recommended changes. This is a starting point, and I'll just give you an abbreviated version. Prior to our start of the mid-year, we had a adjusted spending plan of $140.2 million, projected revenues at $115, and then the balance of that coming from accumulated fund balance, primarily for our capital projects. As we went through the process, then walking through the revenue adjustments, total general fund adjustment of 1.7, called out specifically the NR our CS grant as the largest adjustment being proposed there, and that is partial reimbursement of the Camarillo Springs debris flow project that was recently completed, along with some other minor adjustments to sales tax and property tax, as those two revenue sources, along with the others listed here, are performing a little bit better than the assumptions underlying the 15-16 budget. On the special revenue adjustments, we've got total recommended adjustments $294,000, and they were discussed again, called out here specifically. I'll just highlight the library operations performing a little bit better in the area of property tax, so we're seeing that adjustment, as well as then the library special revenue fund, additional amounts in the grants that underlie that special revenue. CIP revenue adjustments totaling $2.4 million. Primarily, the largest driver of that is the federal grants, 1.8 for the STP, CMAQ, and transit enhancement due to capital projects that are currently in place. And then enterprise funds, a downward adjustment there of $1.1 million. Mark walked you through the detail on the transit. It was an upward adjustment of 106, primarily due to the new trolley service and additional funding available to support that. And then the decrease on the water side was primarily due to consumption that we're seeing as a part of the, we're seeing decreased consumption as a part of our ongoing conservation efforts, then offset by some minor changes to capital improvement fees. Sanitary district, there was an adjustment there, upward adjustment of $190,000. Mark again walked you through the detail of that. Primarily the largest bulk is in the CSD capital, and that accounts for funding for capital projects that are development related in the Springville specific plan. The expenditure adjustments totaled $539,000 for the general fund, larger portion of that non-recurring. Expenditure adjustments for the special revenue fund totaled $39,000, and Tom gave you a detailed presentation on the second plan for tree stump removal. The debt service, a minor adjustment there, about $3,000, and then CIP funds, $50,000 to assist with some project closeout cost. ISF expenditure adjustments were called out and discussed in detail. An IT consultant, adjusting our recruitment budget, as well as a minor adjustment to legal, and then offset by a decreased liability insurance premium for the current fiscal year. The enterprise fund expenditures, Mark, you want to walk through just those quick changes?
Okay, there was $5,000 for some additional tree removal and drought-tolerant planting. There was an increase in credit card charges due to the volume of credit card activity, and you'll see that on the next slide, as well as it's split between the water utility and the sanitary utility. And then additional costs for the water conservation outreach. Totals in the water in the enterprise fund, $44,000. Then in the sanitary district funds, there were some salary and benefits adjustment to the personnel allocations to that fund for $2,000. Credit card charges, this is the other side I referred to. Then there were some additional costs for sewer improvement inspections, increase in activity. And then there were some savings in the solid waste disposal as a result of the renewed contract. That totals the CSD expenditure adjustments upward of $17,000.
Transfer adjustments, we did go over these, and they're detailed again in the agenda report. We highlighted the transfers from the general fund. There's an increase of $36,000, primarily to transit to support ongoing operations, and then a minor adjustment to the community services grant. The revised budget then totals $140.9 million with the recommended adjustments, projected revenue $118.7, and then the balance coming from accumulated fund balance for purposes primarily of capital projects. The general fund spending plan totals a little shy of $36 million, or $35.8. We did have a rather lengthy discussion then about our reserve analysis, and this chart does indicate the general fund, water utility, sanitary district, and risk management funds are all in compliance with their established reserve goals, as well as a majority of our internal service funds. When you then see this chart, was mentioned in the study session as well, there are 3 zones within our maintenance district that are not in compliance. They're a little bit shy of the reserve goal. Per policy, departments are required to then work to bring the plans back into compliance, and so we would envision over the next fiscal year seeing that return to its reserve goal level. And again, all of the reserve goals are in compliance with the City Council policy number 3.05. Where they're not, we've identified a plan and we're working to correct that. At this point, Mark's going to walk you through a few supplemental changes that were not reflected in the numbers presented, and then we'll give you the bottom line.
Okay, we had one adjustment to the expenditure side. That's in the general fund in the Public Works Department. In the traffic division, there was an increase to the salaries and benefits of about $45,000. Then on the revenue side, there were two separate funding sources that we had some revised estimates received from state agencies. First one was in the Article 8 roads apportionment, an increase of $345,000. And then in the gas tax funds, that's a cumulative across three different types of gas tax allocations of $333,000. So the total increase to the revenues was $668,530, and the increase to the expenditures was $44,845. Then on the next slide, you see the cumulative effect of all of the adjustments for the mid-year. The first subtotal is what you had included in your agenda report, and then the last two lines are the ones I just discussed on the previous slide for the supplemental revenue and supplemental expenditure adjustments.
Recommended action at this time is a motion to approve the 2014-15 mid-year budget report and authorize the city manager to adjust the 14-15 budget and make the necessary appropriations. We can answer any additional questions that you might have.
City councilmen have any questions that they would like to ask?
I have a comment.
Yeah, go
I guess
ahead.
it's in the form of a question. Ronnie, would you say that as far as our budget goes, that we're trending well, that we are seeing increases in many of our funds, which is a really good thing vis-a-vis the times that we're existing in?
Yes, I would agree with that statement. I would say that we're recovering well. It's a local recovery, a little unique to Camarillo, but it's a good thing. Sales tax, property tax, business tax, we're seeing a rebound there, primarily in the general fund. I think the other thing to note is the ongoing expenditure adjustments. The majority of them on both the general fund as well as other funds, they're not recurring. So where you're seeing these increases, certainly from a revenue perspective, your revenues, the recurring portion of your revenues is exceeding the recurring portion of your expenditures. So you're keeping that proper balance as well.
And also, I think that we budgeted very conservatively, so any increase that we do get will have earned, and it's not something that just arbitrarily happens. It's because of, hopefully, that we've been realistic in our assumptions.
Yes, we're realistic in our revenue projections as well as then on the expenditure side, kind of laying it all out there and then making the tough decisions. So certainly, yes.
Okay, that's all I have, Your Honor.
Any other comments?
Oh, I just have to comment every year. Looking back 26 years, I'm always amazed at where we are now.
More than amazed. I remember when they said, "Oh, these are our first computers, but there won't be that many, and it'll be, it's easy to take care of." Now, look at it. It was amazing. The budget just for computers now was almost our budget for the hall, for the whole city hall.
Any other comments? If not, can we have a motion to, someone would like to make a motion?
I'll move to approve the 14-15 mid-budget report and authorize the city manager to adjust the 14-15 budget and make the necessary appropriations.
Second.
Second. Any further discussion? If not, please vote. That motion is approved 5-0.
And for CAMSAN, I'll move to approve the 2014-15 mid-year budget report and authorize the executive director to adjust the 2014 budget and make the necessary appropriations.
Is there a second?
Second.
There's a motion and a second, and no further discussion, please vote. And that passes unanimously. So with that, I will adjourn the CAMSAN meeting.
Okay. That takes care of every part of the agenda except for new business, and however, it seems to me we might want to get into the discussion before we get to new business. It would be appropriate to just hold this special meeting in this room and then adjourn this meeting and then go back?
It's a council's pleasure. If we do, we need to take a couple-minute break, and maybe we can do informational items. We have to get the computer synced up here to present, I believe.
Oh.
We had planned on presenting in the back conference room.
Well, then if it's needed, maybe we just can't. Okay. Are you synced up? Okay. All right. Let's do it here if that's all right. And we'll just then we could come back and do our new business. Is that all right with you?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. We will
Ready?
adjourn
Fantastic.
for a brief
ready.
technical timeout.
It's ready, Your Honor.
Oh, we're ready.
It's that new equipment that
These
come a
tech
long
guys
ways.
are good. Their tech guys are good.
Yeah, we can do it. Let's go.
All right. Let me start this off. This is a special meeting of the City Council of Camarillo. We will have we call the roll. And we please let the record show that all members are present. Do we need another flag salute, or can we forgo that?
I think we're okay.
Okay.
Twice a night's enough.
Twice is enough, yeah. Any amendments to any public comments? We'll have public comments when we have the discussion there. Any amendments to this agenda? Are there any amendments?
No, there are no amendments. I did want to clarify quickly that this is a special meeting for the simple reason we went into a new program, and the program dropped this item off of the agenda, so we had to give it a special meeting status. It's the new,
Yeah.
exactly. Yeah.
Those tech people.
We're working on it. Technical difficulty.
Okay. All right. The purpose of this meeting is to have an update on the Camarillo Springs debris flow. And the suggested action is to provide direction for possible action to authorize city manager to retain. Well, I'll let that happen again. So, Mr. City Manager, you want to?
Yeah, if you'll notice, normally when we have a study session, we do two parts. We have the study session, and then we do not agendize that evening. We come back in a future meeting for actual implementation or taking direction from council. This particular item, we did agendize this item so that you can give us, in fact, direction this evening if you so desire, because we want to keep this particular subject matter moving along. And Mr. Fox has a very thorough presentation. We're here to answer any question possible, and we've been all over this item, and we look forward to presenting this to you.
Yes, Tom.
Your Honor, as you're aware, the Camarillo Springs storm damage is a situation that we've been working with Camarillo Springs for a while, and it will take a while before we work our way all the way through resolving the issues that this has brought up. And so what I'm presenting tonight will really be in two parts. We'll start by just recapping lots happened already, and just to, I guess, reorient everybody to what's happened and be clear on the circumstances to understand better then as I go forward to the second part and talk about what are the next steps that we want to consider that the city might participate in. So with that in mind, I'll start with the recap. And this is a photo of, you can see Camarillo Springs, the bottom of the photo, and then the mountain behind it before the Springs fire from 2 years ago. And you can see how green everything is. And I just want to point out a couple features that you can see, of course, how large the mountain is, and the watershed, the drainage ways that come down from the mountain. And then it's no coincidence, and we'll show some photos where we zoom in a minute, but it's no coincidence then that there's a drainage system at the bottom that collects and manages the water that comes off the mountains. And this is a situation that occurred for 30 years prior to the fire. And then we have the fire, and you can see the difference now. This is a photo taken after the fire, and what a different perspective. We no longer have the vegetation. You can see the drainage ways really clearly. And again, we'll zoom in and show, closer as we get down to the community. But this just really helps illustrate the drainage ways, and then zooming in a little bit, now you can start to see that the two streets that we've really talked about the most and that we'll focus on through the presentation tonight is San Como and Gitana. And you can see that this is where one of the debris flows occurred, and you can see the drainage pattern right there, and this is where another major debris flow occurred, and that's the other drainage pattern. And there was a smaller one here, and this is the third one, and we'll see a figure that you've seen before a little bit in the presentation where we label this locations 1, 2, and 3, and those are the primary drainage ways that we've been dealing with. So then what I want to touch on is just to recap, there were 3 storm events that are the primary storm events that have caused damage and also that we've learned from each time as far as moving forward with the next steps. The first one occurred, of course, in October 31st. That was when the mud came down. This is San Como, and this is that one drainage way with the spillway that brought on the first rain in 31st, mud, primarily mud. And this home right here was the one home that was damaged to a point where it was red tagged, and other homes received some mud, but there was primarily one home received significant damage. Of course, the city was very involved in an evacuation effort and a cleanup effort as a result of this storm. We also, at that time, is when we first worked with you to implement the emergency proclamation and begin the process of seeing what we could do to help the community. And as a big effort and it was initiated from that, was working with the National Resources Conservation Service to the NRC. I'll refer to them as the NRCS through the rest of the presentation. We worked with them to see what kind of mitigation we could provide to help the community. And then there was a short time after that, there was another storm event that fortunately did not create significant damage to homes and only required some, moderate cleanup. This is a view looking over that same spillway, and you can see it was primarily water and small debris that we could manage at that time without having it damage homes. And that kind of gave us the impression that that was the type of storm that throughout the rest of the winter we might be dealing with and that we could manage. But unfortunately, then we had the December 12th storm, which was considered a 500-year storm and obviously a very significant rain event that brought down rock more than mud, and that was a whole different circumstance that we then had to start working on. In this case, of course, with the rock and the volume of debris, many more homes were damaged. 16 homes were significantly damaged. 10 of them were red tagged, and the city, of course, at that point had just, based on the work from the previous storms and working with the NRCS, we had secured a contractor, and we're just starting a process to mobilize the contractor the day before this storm. And obviously, then because of the change in our understanding of what the storms could bring, we immediately worked with the NRCS to refocus again, we had the evacuation effort and we had the cleanup effort, and as part of that, we also then had to go over, and this is just north of Gitana, where you can see significant damage to the hillside. We had to reconstruct that, and so the NRCS allowed us to modify our scope and start focusing on some of these other problems that needed to be addressed. And I'll get into more on the NRCS plan in a moment, but then finally, as I just mentioned, we were able to revise the work with the NRCS to revise the scope and plan and move forward with what you see here is their latest plan, which was primarily to and we locate, call them locations 1 through 3. This is the above Gitana. This is one of those. You can see the drainage ways, and it's a debris, call it either a debris landing or a debris platform. It's not a basin. It's an area really just to try and stop the debris. This is above San Como, the primary debris flow, and this was the secondary debris flow a little bit east of that. And then the blue represents K-rail that has been placed in the areas that the risk was the highest that debris may, in the future debris flows could put homes at risk, and the guardrail would be, or the K-rail would be a way of stopping the debris. So this has been implemented, and just to give you some quick imagery of the improvements, this is the location 1 above Gatana. This is the debris platform. There are some major boulders here, so in the future, if there is a rain event that brings debris down, hopefully these will collect the larger debris, and the rest of it will collect here before, and then the minor flows, the water would get into the drainage system here at the back of the photo. As our attorney, Mr. Perrick, pointed out, since these improvements have been in, we have not had a heavy rain event to really test to see how these will hold up. So that remains to be seen. This is above San Como. The main debris flow and the spillway is right here. There is a drain that has been cleaned out and has a debris grate over it to prevent debris from going into the drain. And then, of course, we have the landing area here, the debris landing. And then we have a smaller one above the location 3. This is looking up the hill. Down the hill from us is a small drain that this would, again, hopefully prevent debris from flowing into. And so now, to recap the wrap-up, I'm just going to touch on, and we're kind of in the final stages of the wrap-up and some things that are occurring. The NRCS plan is essentially completed. There is $970,000 in round numbers that were approved by the NRCS to provide the improvements that you saw. That included removing 12,000 cubic yards of debris, and just to kind of put that in perspective, because a cubic yard is 3 yards, a yard by yard by yard, 3-dimensional. Because of the debris being mostly rock and very solid, dense material, the weight of a cubic yard is about equal to an automobile. So it's like basically trying to carry 12,000 automobiles off the hillside. The K-rail that you also saw, the guardrail to basically prevent debris from going down to the homes, is heavy, put up in 10 to 20 foot sections, and we have over 2,000 feet of K-rail that have been put in place. We're still working with some of the homeowners, and just want to emphasize that we're available, staff is available, that as we put the K-rail out, we tried to contact homeowners to make sure that if we, the way the plan showed to make the K-rail work the best, it had to be a continual line of barrier. However, that would mean blocking driveways, and a lot of residents were okay with that. They would park their cars elsewhere, and we're fine with the K-rail. But in some cases, the homeowners need to be able to get in and out of their driveway, and they just let us know if they need access, and we'll work with them to move the K-rail around so that they have either temporary or permanent access, whichever they prefer. So we're still working on that with some fine-tuning. Also, as I mentioned, location 3, that was that minor of the 3 different debris flows. That was the minor one. There's a drain there that's still plugged up. We're getting some final costs on that of around $8,500 that the city is looking to move forward with to clean that drain out. We'll be using our contingency fund for that. And then we have had a number of town meetings, basically to people are aware of resources if they need them, put people in touch with those resources, and as needed we'll continue to have town meetings as new information comes available that may need to be shared. So we imagine that there will be ongoing meetings to keep the communication lines open. And then finally, there's still an evacuation protocol in place. The improvements on the hillside are to minimize risk, but it doesn't mean that it's made it a completely safe hillside, that if there's a storm, there's still risk that people's lives could be in danger, and we need to continue with the evacuation protocol that's been in place, which is if there's a quarter-inch forecast of rain forecast, then we put a voluntary notice out for people to leave, and then if we have a half-inch in the forecast, it's a mandatory. Now, mandatory doesn't mean that we can go in and remove people from their homes, but it's a very strong message, and it's a more of a broad communication that goes out to make sure people are aware they're expected to leave their home. So that's where this kind of leads us up to what we've accomplished in some of the wrap-up items that we're working on. And then that takes us to the next step, which is now how do we move forward with the kind of questions, and I'll get into those, that the homeowners that have had homes damaged are asking, and see if we can help get some answers for them. These are the properties that are highlighted here of homes that were damaged, the red and yellow and green, or yellow, red, yellow, and green tagged homes. We also illustrate for you the basins just to give you a relative sense. So again, this is San Como. Majority of the red tagged homes, there's 7 of them here. My understanding is the green and yellow tagged homes, for the most part, have been lifted and people are back in, or able to get back in. And we have 3 red tagged homes on Katana. So at this point, the red tagged homes, red tag means it's unsafe to occupy or to even enter, to remove debris or possessions. And so we're getting some questions from the homeowners. One of them is, when can I start removing debris and get my possessions out of the house? I know some people have probably already informally entered and taken some things, but officially they're not supposed to be able to do that. And then they're also asking, at what point can I start making repairs to my house, and when can I eventually occupy my home? I'll take each of these questions in order, and the first one is the most immediate. Before anything can happen, people need to at least be able to enter their home to start removing the debris so they can assess the situation. And in order to do that, the city must issue a debris permit, a debris removal permit. That's important. It's not only specified in our code, but it's a good idea because it makes sure that a proper plan is in place, so as people enter the property, they're going to be safe. And there's also then, in order to prepare a plan, to make sure that, well, let me back up and say that in order to get a permit, usually when we issue a permit, some kind of information has to be provided for us to evaluate and know that it's appropriate time to issue a permit. And so that involves putting a plan together. And in this case, the plan requires some studies to support the preparation of the plan. I'll get into those studies in a moment. And then there's a couple options for the way this could play out. The typical way that when somebody applies for a permit would be, in this case, for the residents to prepare the plan and studies, or as a matter of any permit application, we usually look for the applicant to provide the evidence and information to support why it's appropriate to grant them a permit. However, in this case, an option worth considering is that the city would prepare the plan and the various studies for a couple of reasons. One is we can probably move more quickly because we understand what the studies are that are needed. They're somewhat complex, and for a homeowner who maybe isn't really familiar with this type of circumstance, it may take a while for them to educate themselves to really understand what they need to do to even move forward with getting a permit. Also, by doing a coordinated plan, there's an ability for us to make sure that there's probably a need for coordination, particularly on San Como, and I'll use it as an example, where if you have homes with debris, rock debris around homes adjacent to each other, and you can't remove the debris from one home without creating a risk on the other home, they may need to work in unison, and this is a way to have a coordinated plan to make sure that everybody that needs to work together is working together moving forward with this. So if we were to move forward and consider the concept of a city preparing a plan, what would we need to do? Well, one is we would need to secure 2 experts. One is a geotechnical firm, and the other would be, and I list it as an architectural/engineering firm. What we'd really be doing is hiring a structural engineer because we're dealing with 2 really pieces that need to be analyzed. The rock and the hillside need to be analyzed, and that's what the geotechnical engineer would provide. But the structures themselves, we need to know, haven't been damaged to a point where they're compromised beyond a level of safety that we would need to feel comfortable with. And mostly these are architectural firms that provide that service, but within their firm they hire engineers, structural engineers. So we would actually be working with an engineer, although you'll see our recommendation would be to move forward with an architectural firm. And then to do this, we're looking at, for both studies, a $60,000 budget. That budget is about $40,000 for the preparation of the plan, and then $20,000 would be for inspection services. It's not the type of inspection that a typical public works director would provide. It would be a structural engineer who would have to, at different stages of the work, review to make sure everything is moving in a safe manner, that something hasn't happened where, and I'll use a real just an example, that not necessarily say it's the case here, but if you have a lot of rock built up on the outside of a house and somebody were to go in and remove all the rock on the inside of the house at once, that could collapse the structure. And that might have to be done in stages that an inspector would have to monitor at each stage. So this budget combines both the preparation of the plan and then the supervision of the work. And then the scope basically would include an evaluation of the structural integrity of the buildings or the houses. It would identify conditions that would have to be met for somebody to enter their property to retrieve possessions or remove debris. An example would be, we don't expect anybody to be working when it's raining out. That wouldn't be a good time. So the studies will provide these conditions, which then we can transfer and would include with a permit. Typically when we issue permits, they include a list of conditions that we want the permittee to be aware of and follow. And then more on San Como, there's probably going to be a methodology to figure out how to remove the rock in a way that is safe and probably involves multiple properties at one time. So that would be the general scope for what I would call the phase one work, and that is, how do we answer the first question? How do we grant the debris removal permits as soon as possible? The hope is, and as I get into recommending which firms to consider, we have a potential that if you take action tonight, that this could possibly be completed as early as 2 weeks from now. Obviously, the residents are anxious to get access to their homes, and we would like to get them to that point as quickly as possible. The second two questions really are related because it's the same research that's needed, and that is there's really two actions. When can I after the debris is removed, can I start working on my house to restore it? That requires a building permit. And then the question on when can I occupy, that requires an occupancy permit. Well, in both cases, we would need to know that before we could grant these permits that the hillside is safe enough for them to move forward with those actions. And you can imagine that's going to take a little more research, and so the schedule would be longer for that. And it would be one of those where we're really in the process of collecting information to bring back at a later date a further discussion on what our options are. And I'll get into that. So then the primary study that we would need is a geotechnical study on the hillside, but fortunately we have some work that's already been done by Grover Hollingsworth. They're a geotechnical firm that the HOA has hired. They've already provided some research and some reports, and so we would recommend hiring a geotechnical firm that can do a peer review. A peer review is just reviewing the work and looking to see if there's other information that can be brought to the discussion, just a check of the work, and then also develop beyond that and look to see, are there other alternatives. For example, one of the solutions that's been thrown out for consideration is to construct debris basins. Debris basins can cost millions of dollars. Are there other types of solutions that are maybe more affordable that could be implemented? We don't know the answers, but the way to find out what could possibly be there is helpful information would be to get a geotechnical study, and we're looking at a budget of $10,000 for that review that the geotechnical firm would provide. The suggested action then for you to consider tonight is appropriate $70,000 for geotechnical and architectural / engineering studies. That would be one budget that both studies would be charged to. And then we would recommend authorizing the city manager to sign contracts, one with Geodynamics, which is a geotechnical firm that we actually have used for a number of years. They're under contract with us now. They review our land development applications. They're a very good firm as far as both understanding from the technical side, but having a practical approach to things. And we've had good success working with them. And because they are essentially already under contract with us, we would advise working with them. And then Square One is an architectural firm, but again, they have structural engineers that work with them, and they are who we're recommending. They have a good relationship with our building and safety department. They've been certified by to do this type of work. They're local. They're in Camarillo, so there's somebody that we have experience with that we know can help us with this as well. Obviously, time is of the essence, and so rather than going through a long RFP process, these are firms that we know can do the work. Their proposals are reasonable, and so if you are of the mind of going forward with the recommendation, we would recommend these two firms. With that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Your Honor, I have a question.
Question?
Yes.
Charlotte?
Yeah, this geodynamics, did they have anything to do with any of the geotechnical studies before these were built?
No, geodynamics is somebody we've used probably for the last, between the last 5 and 10 years. I don't believe they were around 30 years ago, if that's what you're talking about.
Or the people that they'd be using on this study, were they involved in the original studies?
No, no.
We can make that a condition, that anyone involved or
In the original studies,
yeah, they
I
can't,
don't believe
yeah, we
should
can't
be
have a
involved in
conflict.
these
Right.
studies.
We're after an objective study.
What they have asked for is actually to have copies of the original studies so they could evaluate that as part of their background research. But
Well,
no.
sometimes people change companies, that's all I was.
No, these engineers are not young, but they're not that old. So
That was another generation, Charlotte.
Thanks.
Well, I'm part of it. Okay. Kevin, you have a question?
Tom, I certainly support this, but, time is kind of, as you know, I mean, it's a $64,000 question, if not more, the timing on all this, and I'm sure if I were a property owner out there, I'd want to have this completed as quickly as possible within the realm of making sure that it's safe and it's viable plan here. So is that something that you've considered when you made this proposal?
yes, absolutely. And let me clarify, there are two parts to this. Again, the reviewing the current circumstances to determine if it's safe to remove debris, that is a faster process that can occur. And one of the reasons we use these firms is they are ready, and we've had experience with them to know they can operate quickly, and that's why they actually provided a more aggressive schedule than I thought possible, and they are hoping within 2 weeks to perhaps be able to come back with answers, unless they find something in their analysis that causes us to have to pause and assess further what they may discover. But if everything goes smoothly, they're moving faster than I would imagine anybody else would be able to. So that's the first phase. The second phase is the more complex question to answer, and that is, that's already been identified that there's still some remediation that will be needed on the hillside to make sure it's safe. The question is just what will that involve, and we need to gather as much information as we can to bring back and have an educated conversation on that. And when I mean educated, by having enough information to be able to have the conversation. We're not even at that point yet. They're going to need to take a little longer to research the records and go through all the information that's out there, so that will probably be sometime in March before we would have a conclusion to that effort.
Okay, that's all I have.
Okay, Mike?
We talk fire. We talk about a fire that's probably never, in 52 years I've been here, I've never seen one go over the hill like that. Ever. 100-year storm. There's been bigger storms than that hit Camarillo. 69, 98, I can keep going down the line. And it never caused that to happen. It never caused on Malibu to happen. But it did cause basically the fire. We're having chances now of vegetation. It's not recovered, of course not, but down the line it should be. And we've put in new catch basins that'll, you say, catch the ones that could go down and, trap them there. And they have to be cleaned out, of course. But the time it's going to take for all this stuff to be done, the 60,000, those kinds of things, I think that we should, once they've got that okay from the engineers and saying you can go in, I think they should be able to go in and sign a little thing, I'm taking my own responsibility, to go in and clean their places out. And then those that aren't fit can be destroyed, of course. But they've got to find out, and you can't wait 3, 4, 5 months.
Understood, and I believe that that's the goal that we've laid out, is to be able to enable them at least, hopefully within a few weeks, to get a permit to be able to start removing debris from their homes.
Okay, so they can go ahead and go in after that permit?
To remove debris.
Yes. Okay.
Jan?
To your knowledge, are homeowners, are they, all of them, ready now to move? In other words, if you all kind of have to do it together, everybody's ready to go, you don't have one homeowner that's not, or? would cause this problem?
Some are. We don't have everybody completely in sync yet. Part of it is because we need the information to help them understand what it takes to be, what they can accomplish by being in sync. We have different homeowners that have moved in different directions. Some are ready to move in. Others have just almost moved on. Of course, we would work with the HOA to try and assist in getting the homeowners the information to the homeowners so that we can issue permits and get, but it may be conditional that they have to work together. And of course, we would do everything we can to help them move in that direction.
That's what I was wondering, if there's something parallel that we need to be doing in order to get everybody moving on the same track, so to speak.
My sense is, just to add to that, is that if you do take action tonight to move forward with the studies, that would be a positive sign that I think would encourage people to start preparing to work together.
Good. And do we have some place to put all this mud and this rock, the same place the rest of it went, or is that another issue?
Everything is a challenge. So I can say that we'll find solutions. For example, taking the rock, Staben has been a contractor we've used that can probably continue to do that, but there are some permitting issues with the county we have to work through. Mud, we're having a little more challenge finding where to dispose of that, but
Can't set it out on the curb and somebody.
we are actually almost doing that, where we dry it out and hopefully are finding potentially some people around the community that can use dirt and can haul it off, but we don't have, unfortunately, people lining up quite yet.
But that's something else you're working on at the same time.
All of that will be something that we are prepared to coordinate and work on.
And this one is, I'm just curious, with the hills are turning a little green. How many years will it take till that vegetation's enough to start to hold that hill?
That's part of what we want the geotechnical to study. Just to throw out some numbers that people have been hearing is 4 to 5 years for the. But there may be ways to assist that. Maybe not. That's all up for the analysis to tell us.
Okay. Well, I certainly would support moving forward with this as well, because I think it's something that it needs to happen, and we need to help.
Yeah, I got a couple questions. You said the first phase, the study of the individual homes and what needs, if anything, needs to be done to them to allow safe access. That can be done in about 2 weeks. Is that correct?
3 weeks. We hope to have the results of the study within 2 weeks that will give us the conditions to start issuing permits. Then, of course, residents will have to come in and work with us to be able to issue the permit, and that may take some coordination. So I'm not, if everybody's in line ready to go in 2 to 3 weeks, maybe they could be out there.
Well, that's a question I have. Are you planning to do a study of every one of those 10 or whatever number houses that are red tagged?
Absolutely. This is a comprehensive study that's going to...
They will be done whether they say that I want to do it or not.
Absolutely. The analysis doesn't require that our consultants have to have access to the interior of the home. They can do everything from the exterior, and so they will be able to complete their study whether the residents are available to communicate with or not.
Okay, and then so that's a 2-week deal. So the second part of it, which is the geotech and and looking at the mountain and seeing what's up there and what needs to be done to make sure try to minimize the future problems. That's going to take about a month?
Yeah, that is a little more of a challenge to put a solid schedule to it, because it really depends on what they find as they look at the documents and do their research, and then as they review the hillside and really assess what the conditions are. So they may find they need to go further with the analysis. If they find things, they may not. So, but just knowing that just the background research alone is a time-consuming effort. It's at least a month for that. Yes. So it'd be sometime, I would imagine, the latter part of March before we would be prepared to discuss the results.
Okay. Just one other question. There's 10 houses out there red tagged, but the ones on Gatana were differently affected than the ones on San Como by a great deal amount. I mean, they don't have the rocks around them that the others do. they were damaged, but not as severely as it appears to me anyway, just driving by, and I've been out there a couple of times in the last couple of weeks. Is that, I mean, but at the same time, they're in a debris field, or they were in a debris field. So you still will apply the same requirements to those people, those houses, as every one of them?
Not necessarily. The consultant will be analyzing all the homes, but the likelihood is that the homes on Gitana will have a different set of conditions in their permit than the homes on San Como. So for an example, on Gitana, the homeowners may be able to work independently because there is not enough rock between the homes that they have to do a coordinated effort. On San Como, it may be different, at least for some of the homes, where they can't remove the rock unless they're doing it in unison with their neighbor. So most likely there will be different conditions for different areas, and the consultant's aware of the differences.
So, this is not something that needs, after 2 weeks, to come back to this council. You can, once we give you authorization, if, say, some homes can be done in a week or 10 days, and then those people can be notified and allowed to proceed to clean out their...
Correct. We've structured the recommendation so that your action tonight would give us the authority to move forward with carrying this to conclusion.
But the geotechnical is something that will have to, let's say, a building permit to restore may have to wait.
Let me clarify. When I say to conclusion, it was this first phase that we were talking about, conclusion being issued, debris removal permits.
I'm to the second
But to go beyond that and start discussing whether the hillside is safe enough to allow people to apply for building permits, I don't even want to venture an estimate of how that'll play out, because we don't have enough information at this point to really make that kind of prediction.
Okay.
Your Honor, can I clarify something that was just you just asked him? I think he asked the question whether some could start before the others in the cleanup. Don't you have to have a whole plan first?
Well, and again, I'm hesitant to get really specific on my answer, because unlike what we normally do, everything with this whole experience is somewhat new for us, because we're not following all the normal steps that take a lot longer. And so normally we would have a full scope of work, very detailed, that the consultants have had a few weeks to put together. We've had time to review. They only put this together over a 2-day period 3 days ago. So we haven't had a lot of time to really drill down to those details. So I can only give you maybe a summation or some estimates of what can happen. And it's possible that we could have 2 separate plans, for example, 1 or 2 separate sets of conditions that go on permits, one for Gitana, another one for San Como. And if Gitana falls into place faster, we're not going to wait until San Como's plan is done. We might be able to issue some permits on Gitana. That's a possibility, but I can't say definitively that's the way it'll play out.
I just don't want people to think, oh, they've been to my house, so therefore I ought to get going. But, so it may indeed wait until you get everybody on that block, or you just don't know. I don't want people to think that they might get ahead of somebody else, because that makes sense.
Yes.
On the other hand,
if they do, then they do, but you don't want the expectation out there that come see me first and I get to go first kind of thing.
I think flexibility is key to this too. So we move as the conditions permit.
I think it sounds like in the direction we're moving here, if you do take action, it also goes a long ways to at least give some more definition to the schedule. Right now, the answer's been here. You need to apply for a permit, and the normal process is you got to go find the facts to justify the permit. How do they even begin that, and how long does that take, is a big unknown. At least tonight, if you take action, things start to become more defined, and I think that's a big step that helps.
Yeah. Okay, and it's $70,000.
Correct.
It's going to be our money. Okay. Is there any further discussion?
Did you want to have public comment before you take action?
So I was just going to ask. Okay. Anyone like to comment? Please come up to the lectern and state your name. Introduce yourself.
Mayor and Council, my name is Elton Gallagher, and we're trustees for a house on Katana. And to just give you a quick background, I have been a licensed general building contractor for 42 years. My license is still active. I took a leave of absence for about 26 years for another job, and now I'm back. Every project, this is like peeling an onion, and not every onion is the same size. We have a situation on Katana. I met with an engineer this morning. The only structural damage that I can see as a professional contractor is the screen door and the garage door. There's a couple places about that large of stucco that's broken on the outside. The main issue that we have right now is not looking for a building permit or to rebuild. We have a very big public safety issue. There's still about 2 inches of mud inside and all the belongings. Engineer this morning told me, we've got to get this out of here before the mold starts growing significantly. We're going to have a hazardous waste issue. And we have a volunteer group that's nationally recognized that's ready to go to work out there. And as soon as we can get authorization to just clean the outside, don't worry about anything. I mean, the inside, don't worry about anything on the outside. The gravel and so on and so forth, and we don't even have any rocks inside. But there is drywall about 18 inches above the floor that has absorbed moisture. And of course, all of the furniture, the stuffed furniture, is growing stuff. If we can have authorization not to do anything structurally other than maybe remove some of the wet drywall and take the carpet out and the mud out and all the furniture that has the potential for growing mold, which is going to create a huge situation. We have refrigerators and they're turned over with food still. We've found raccoon tracks and possum tracks inside. We've now secured the house thanks to the building department authorizing us to lock it up. So I would just appeal to you to find some method of having anyone on the building and safety department to go out and look and see if there's any question about structural integrity or danger, put a big red flag up. But from the health standpoint and for the ability, when we're going to lose this crew that's volunteering to come in, that's professionally set up to do this and remove the health hazard for 5, 6, 7, maybe 8 homes, they're ready to go. But if it gets into a hazardous situation, we're going to lose all of it, plus significant damage and security to the neighborhood. I appeal to you to consider that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Could I ask a question along that line? So that's telling us that we want to do that section first because of that one's doesn't have the boulders and whatnot?
Yeah, again, we're well aware of what people want to accomplish, what all the residents want to accomplish. And absolutely one of the goals of the team, the geotechnical and architectural and engineering team, call it a triage if you want to go through and look at the properties and identify are there some that could be moved ahead of others because of their circumstance and concentrate on those to get an earlier release. That's all part of the analysis, but barring the conclusion of that, I can't say when or how that'll play out.
But they'll take that into account.
Absolutely. Our goal is to, those that can move faster will move faster.
Okay. And let me add, too, keep in mind that the 10 red tagged homes, they have been inspected by the building inspectors, and in their best professional judgment, they are red tagged.
That's how they got there.
Right. That's how the situation started.
I guess my concern is just, as I said earlier, we need flexibility because it does no good if we have a home that is structurally okay, but in the process of delay of not being able to get everything out of there, we end up with it contaminated.
Yeah.
Do we have an option, like we do, people have that sit under airports, and we say, you sign this saying you realize this airport's here and it's a problem. If it crashes, you know it was here. Is there something that we can do that they take responsibility by writing off, signing off, take responsibility for their own safety and for their own whatever, to be able to go in and clean the house. Because if they do, then they're seems to me they're responsible for their own safety.
To add to his question, a licensed professional to go in. A licensed professional to go in and do the clean out.
I'm just talking about individuals. I don't care who it is.
Well, no,
I'm talking about people going in to clean it up. Can they sign something to say that they take responsibility for their own safety and health?
Well, I think that question is probably asked of, am I right, Councilman?
Yes.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
We have had discussions with respect to what potential release and consent forms we might require as part of this process. And as Mr. Fox has indicated, it's an evolving process, but is one that has received substantial attention by, I know Bruce Fang and Tom and I and many others have been working many hours on this project to try to get it to where it is, and included in that process would be a potential release and assumption of risk document.
All right, Barbara, you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, Barbara Williams. Okay, to add to that discussion, we've had professionals go up and look, and we think because of the time it's taken to come to this point, we may have gone beyond the safety factor, and it may be in a hazardous material removal state now because people have not been allowed to go in those homes. And I'm talking homes that only have water and mud, that there were no breaches, so there is no structural integrity. And that's why I'm asking if we can identify those right now, get the permits to get the licensed professionals to go in there and do the removal, because we may be actually in the situation of a hazardous material removal because of the amount of mold and hazardous material that could be in the air. But those to be identified right away or to keep from getting into the hazardous material removal situation. There are 2 homes on Sancoma that probably fall into that category, and probably the homes on Gitana that fall in that category, that it is very clear that if you get a licensed professional to go in there to remove the water and the mud and take down the drywall, you can get that mold taken care of right now. And it is a safety issue. We've also had recommendations from the Office of Emergency Services that anybody who does go in there has to have a face mask and have their bodies, their feet covered and their legs covered. And once they go out of the home, they have to either clean that material or throw it away. So those things. But I think there's some homes that actually can be taken care of right now. Get the permission, get the permits to have the people go in there and clean them out, because some of the insurance companies has offered to do that, and they're just waiting for the permission to do that. I would also ask that for any of these permits that are required with regards to the debris removal inside the homes, that any cost for that be waived so that can get done and we can get through this process very quickly, because these people have already spent a lot of their own money up to this point, and any help we can get on waiving of permit fees. I'm not talking about the rebuilding type of permits, but the ones that are associated with all the debris removal.
Well, that's what I was trying to get. If there's some way you can get a written thing taken, relieving responsibility of the city and so on and so forth, it's got to be able to do that.
Doesn't it sound like you'd want it to be licensed professionals?
No, it'd be licensed professionals. That's what I mean.
Because it's gone beyond the part of allowing a homeowner just to go in there and do retrieval. You need somebody who is qualified to help them do that. I mean, it's unsafe. It totally is unsafe right now.
Our city attorney, can I ask the city attorney a question about that? When we talk about the permit, relieving responsibility of the city, so they can get some licensed professionals to go in and analyze and see what the situation is. That's almost like us hiring the professionals to go in and do it. But then after it's clean, we can have our people then look at it and see what, structurally, if we think it's sound.
And everything we hear is that the Southern Baptist Convention people do have the licenses and authorities to do those things, and they're willing to help us out at no cost.
Okay.
But a number of the insurance companies are willing to send in the professionals as well.
I'd like to hear what the city attorney was
I
going
do
to
too.
say.
I'm waiting to hear him.
Look, I was waiting for people to stop talking. As I indicated in my prior comment, I am working with City Manager Bruce Peng and with Tom Fox to coordinate the effort. You heard from Mr. Fox earlier tonight as to what's being done from the engineering and geotechnical standpoint. And included in that discussion already has been what kind of permits would be required. We came to the conclusion we should require a debris removal permit as well as a building permit. And we have also had discussions about an assumption of the risk or release form that would need to be drafted as part of this process. So the timing on what happens when, I cannot say that that's, I can't predict that that's going to happen tomorrow at 2 o'clock, but I can say it's a matter that's getting our attention, and as soon as we have the documents necessary to allow this work to go forward, it will.
So that could be a week. Maybe.
Well, I don't want to say it's a week. It could be a day. Like I said, we have been meeting, I think, almost every single day on this matter. I think on Monday we met for 3 hours. We are giving it our attention. We've mapped out a game plan. I know Mr. Fox has been doing a substantial amount of work tracking down the experts that he recommended to you this evening. So we are working on it as fast as we can.
But you're not answering my question.
I'm not sure. I thought I just said.
Can they take a liability?
Yeah. The answer is yes. We would ask them to sign a release form.
Okay, they can do that.
I think the real issue, and I think what the staff has done is incredible in a short amount of time, and that is to set up a format by which you can evaluate the individual houses, decide how you can get the rock and debris around without doing any more damage than you have to, and then to look at what the long-term thing is for the hillside and the mountain and how that works. What we're talking about is something that is to do immediately for those homes that have minimal structural damage, apparent damage, and to fast-track those to get them cleaned out before they become a hazardous waste building. And then no matter what you can do with them, they're uninhabitable until you basically gut them and start all over with them. I don't think we want that to happen. So I think we have to, approve the plan and direct the staff to proceed to try to fast-track at least the homes that's been identified. Apparently there's 4 on Gitana and 2 on San Como that look like they would be candidates for this sort of thing. And then proceed as quickly as possible to get the other parts of this program into place.
Your Honor?
Yeah.
I'd like a little more explanation from staff as to the red tagging. If there was minimal damage, why were they red tagged? Could we have some description or talk about this? And I'm sure that our building official person out here knows which ones they're talking about.
Good evening. The tagging process that happens at a disaster is that the building inspector goes out and makes an immediate determination whether the house is habitable or not habitable. In a red, not habitable, yellow, maybe limited rooms habitable, and green, okay to occupy. They have, they're not engineers, we're building inspectors, but we have been certified by the state and trained by the state to identify things that make a house habitable and not. In this case, our inspector went out, looked at the damage of the houses, determined if there's light, if there's heat, if there's structural damage. There's lots of things that make a house occupiable or not. So in the yellow tagged houses, at the time, he felt that there was some hazard there in the structure. It could have been maybe their electrical panels had been damaged, they didn't have power, or the air conditioning units were blown off their things, and they had, maybe some electrical damage there. So the yellow tagged houses were probably minor. I know for a fact, I think there were 2 yellow tagged houses that we have changed to greenhouses, so they're now occupiable. The red tagged houses were pretty obvious that they were not occupiable. I mean, the rock was to the roof in most of those cases, including on the Gitana side. The rock was to the roof up in the front areas of the garages. So the rock did impact those homes quite strongly. So that's the difference between green, yellow, and red. Does that answer your question?
Well,
Your Honor, I'm going to add to this because I understand the issue. We've got some homes that perhaps people can enter fairly easily because some of the maybe issues that led to the red tagging have been modified. For example, some of the rock that was against the homes on Gitana has been removed. However, I think it's rather than just say, you know what, sign a form, and if you go and poke a stick and it falls on you, sorry that you had a bad day. We're not going to go that far. We're going to have at least some initial review to make sure that it makes sense, that it looks reasonably safe for them to move in. There could be some risk. That's why we have them sign the form. So about the best commitment I can make, and I'm committing some consultants here that aren't here tonight to be able to, defend themselves, is that they're ready to go. So we would hope, even without, and this is the beauty of working with them, even without contracts, they'll be out there knowing the contract documents are coming, probably tomorrow. That would be our goal, is to have them out tomorrow. And if it turns out that some of the homes are as described, and we don't know until the experts look at it, they may be able to go out there tomorrow and look at the homes on Gitana and say, you know what, these homes are at a point now that they can be entered, not to reside there, but under certain conditions, when it's not raining, when it's daylight, so they can see shifts in conditions. There may be some conditions. With those conditions, maybe the next day we can be issuing them permits. It could work out that easily. But I can't sit here and say for sure that'll happen because the experts aren't here to say how they will analyze it and when they'll have a conclusion. But it could be that quick.
And I don't think the council wants to put either staff or the people in a position whereby you just say, well, go in because we want you to go in, so.
Yeah, we want to be safe.
I think that's a reasonable proposal. I think the staff knows the feeling here that we get the ones that can be perhaps cleaned out and safely without any much ado, and then start worrying about the ones that are more seriously impacted and what needs to be done to get, because some of those on San Como, it's going to take several days just to clear the rocks out from under or from around them. So I think there's a lot of difference in the scale of the damages.
So it seems like what we do then is the council needs to approve the funding, authorize these contracts, and let staff get out there and get the job done.
I don't disagree that one bit. So
I'll make that motion.
Can I ask one more question?
Yes, go
and
ahead,
this is
Robert.
really to Tom. For those people in the yellow tagged homes, do they require a permit in order to have the debris removal in their house done?
Well, actually, it's not for Tom. If I could get some help
right.
from our building official.
come to so people can hear you.
For the yellow tagged houses, I'd be happy to have Steve or myself come out, meet with the property owners, and take a look at the houses.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you, Renee. All right. We have a motion and a second to authorize the appropriation of $70,000 for the purposes as stated in the reports or the conversations, and with the emphasis on trying to clear out some of them as soon as we can.
Yep.
Okay. Any discussion?
Yep.
Please vote. Motion carries 5-0. So we've got it done. So thank you all for coming and attending this meeting.
Yeah.
I think we made some real progress tonight. Okay, we'll return to the regular city agenda. And the only thing I see that we haven't covered is the oral communications. Mr. City Manager, do you have anything you'd like to report?
Yeah, I've got several items that I'll go through them pretty rapidly. And before I forget, where'd Guy go? We do have a cake for Monica and Guy in the ACR that we
Oh, okay.
go back and cut the
I wondered
cake.
when we were going to get to
Eat
that.
leftover pizza. This past couple weeks since our last meeting, I attended our monthly chamber membership meeting. The city participates in the Economic Development Committee meeting, and I typically give an update on the city's economic development activities for the preceding month. I attend an every other month outlets meeting that I've never really reported out on. It's been going on for probably a year and a half now, but it's a regional meeting with the county admin, safety, the outlet folks, and myself, and we coordinate on how the outlet's doing and things that the city's doing that may or may not, or may impact the outlets. And it's about an hour and a half. It's a very good networking meeting. It's very nuts and bolts, and it talks a lot about security, the holiday parking. We talked about the trolley, for example. There's a number of items. It's just a very good endeavor to stay in touch with each other. I attended the California League City Managers meeting. It was in San Francisco this year. And on a comparative basis, we are comparing quite well. Frankly, we're doing better than most cities. I think we would expect that when you look at some of the programs and issues that we're dealing with. I think we're dealing with them up front, and we're dealing with them thoroughly and effectively. Cigarettes, cell towers, massage ordinances, those types of items. And on a competitive basis, I think we're doing quite well with looking at what we're competing for in terms of revenue, sales tax, property tax, and attracting funding. Again, another good visit. And then lastly, I didn't get a chance to make some comments on behalf of myself and staff about Guy. And we could do it in the back room, but I also wanted to mention that there's all kinds of great things that can be said. You're extremely dedicated. You've been responsive. You've been a lot of fun to work with. But I'll tell you, one of the most important things, when I get the 2 a.m. call and I see your name on my phone, it's about the worst feeling I can get. Probably second worst. If it's the mayor, it'd probably be the worst. But then there's really some problems. But yeah, I understood, and that's good. But that's happened more often than not, and it's not a good feeling, but it is a horrible feeling. But probably the best feeling is to know that you guys are on the other end, taking care of things and doing a really good job. Great team, and we're going to miss you. And you'll be approving our budget. I know you're in charge of that still, somewhat. So we appreciate all you have done. Really, really great job. Thank you. And again, the cake after this. That's it.
City Attorney.
I have no items.
Okay, let's start. Let's start with Jan. Jan.
I have nothing tonight. I'm ready for cake.
Okay. Mike.
Real quickies.
Attended meetings.
Oh, did I?
First, don't you know that Anita and KC were back in town?
Oh, really?
Yeah, we had a little party for them over at Rick's. A whole lot of people came. I think Karen Elder set the party up, and that was a lot of fun. They're having a ball in Tennessee.
They're just visiting. They're not back to
No, they're not staying. They like Tennessee. It's a small community, but a lot of things to do with a lot of people their age, and it's a kick. So.
No income tax.
And we're invited anytime because they love to have visitors. That tells me something when you want visitors. Secondly, AWA, we had a committee meeting to select our new officers. I'm going to go through this real quick. The Sheriff's Foundation luncheon was very successful. That was a lot of fun. Who went to that? You do go? Okay, three of us went to that. That's always worthwhile. You learn what the sheriffs are doing and what they're doing, why they're raising the funds, and so on and so forth. I'll go away from that. Goal session. We had a goal session. Never mind. Camarillo Ranch Foundation. We had a meeting, but we also had a second meeting. That was the retreat on Saturday. And on Saturday we had that's long. Bill had to leave after a while because it lasted so many hours. But we got a lot done. And those people are hard workers in our foundation, I want to tell you. Setting up the goals for the next year and new. Anyway, it went on and on. That's it.
Okay,
It's all yours.
okay. Kevin?
Yeah, the gas station at Arneal and Ponderosa, I know there's a fence that's up on that. Is that going to be torn down eventually, or what potentially is going to happen with that?
Tank cleanup?
You'll never
The
know.
old,
It's the one, I'm familiar with,
Yeah.
Dave, Arneal and Ponderosa.
Yeah. Well, it's currently under remediation now for soils contamination. Once the contamination's done and it's cleared, then it can be redeveloped.
Do we know a time frame?
I don't have a time frame.
Because the one at our center, we're going on about 10 years now with that, so.
more like 50.
More than that.
Yeah, the aeration of soil as a contamination remediation process is quite lengthy.
But the one on our corner wasn't bad at all. The one at Arneal and Las Posas.
Are they going through that process now to look at the soil contamination of it? Do you know?
Yeah.
You don't see me. She's working.
They haven't started yet.
I don't think they've started.
They just put the fence up.
I'm sorry, which corner was that again?
It's Arneal and Ponderosa. It's the old 76 gas station there, right next to the Texas Cattle.
Well, they just put the fence up
They
a couple
just put a
days
fence
ago,
up a
so
couple
they haven't
days
started
ago.
digging yet.
Oh, yeah, they're if they haven't pulled the tanks, they're probably getting ready to pull the tanks. And then once they pull the tanks, they have to test the soil around the tanks. If they've been leaking, they're going to have to go through a remediation process.
Right. And that
Okay.
takes a while,
It does.
a long time.
It's just a situation where we might want to keep abreast of that.
Oh, absolutely. No, we know there's an active developer who wants to redevelop that, and we've seen preliminary concepts for the redevelopment of that corner.
Okay. And there's some restaurants in town, too, that have closed recently, and there's restaurants in town that are struggling. And are we actively working with them to see what we can do to try to get that going again? I know with the Chamber of Commerce and with the economic development, people that we've got here. There's this one in particular that I think this is the fourth owner that's tried to make a go of it, and it's still struggling. So,
I'm aware of that one in particular, if it's the one you're thinking of on the boulevard. And they do have a very good lead from a restaurant that's thinking of opening here. They're currently in Santa Barbara to open another restaurant here. So we have an active outreach with the businesses and with the real estate brokers. So when any business, not just restaurants, we try and stay with them and help them and see what the city can do with them, help them.
yeah, because I've noticed that some of the shopping centers are starting to show their age, too. And there's a real concern out there with the brick and mortars. And I think we need to, I always like to circle the wagons in front of an issue and not in back of it. So if there's a way that with the economic development people that we can look in there and make sure they're at least doing what they're supposed to do as far as the maintenance on them and keep that up. I'm specifically talking about the one on Arneal.
There's several on Arneal.
There's several on Arneal there. As you drive through, matter of fact, there's trucks that's actually parked in the back by the bowling alley. I don't know if anybody ever goes over there, but there's...
They're on-site trucks.
They're on-site trucks, exactly.
Well, there's several
I've asked
of them.
that.
There's several of them.
Yeah, they're...
I mean several.
Yeah.
So if that's what we want to allow there, that's one thing, but I'm certainly not comfortable with that. So I don't know if that's a permitted usage of that or what.
I have asked that question, and Mr. Norman answered me that if you own a business on that property, you're allowed to park your truck, and those trucks belong to the next door to what used to be the bank there. Help
In
me
the
with what it
Ponderosa
is. Yes.
Shopping Center over by I'm talking by the Goodwill.
Yeah, it's the catty corner from there. It's the postal store. What do you call it?
That's now
FedEx?
FedEx.
It's their trucks.
These didn't look like FedEx trucks to me. But anyhow, maybe we ought to go take a look at that and see.
You don't have the cab.
The
You
only
only have
kind
the
of-
cab. You don't have the trailer to it.
The only kind of trucks we can get removed, which we did.
No, there was
Kevin?
cab and trailer.
Okay, let's.
Kevin, we did get trucks removed from there once over in the front because they were advertising. They stuck their truck out there in front of that standard station across the way, just to be there to show advertising. We got rid of those.
Well, I think maybe we made it, maybe staff can take a look at that and see what's
we'll look
happening
into
over
that.
there.
Okay.
You mean the
And-
ones parked by the professional office building?
No, it's, you know where the bowling alley is?
Yeah.
In the Ponderosa Shopping
And there's a
Center,
professional
directly
office
across
building.
from that.
Behind your
Yeah,
house, Charlotte.
Right in there.
Yeah.
It's behind one of your houses.
Yeah. Right in there. And I think that's it.
Okay.
Is that it? Yeah, I think that's it for me.
Okay, Charlotte?
Yeah, well, I'm going to let you go back to Mrs. McDonald so she can report on the J-Luce committee, and I'll report on all these other things that I attended. I attended the site authority. I did attend the J-Luce committee.
I was going to let you, but
Well, you got to get it in that you attended. I attended the site authority meeting, and I think I talked to you about them wanting to sell off what I consider the crown jewels, which are the homes that the site authority built. I neglected to bring the timeline. I did fax that to Mr. Fang. They're planning in March to take that plan to it was on the site authority's agenda. However, what happened was we had 7 people come and talk to us about a variety of things, from there not being lights to people walking their dogs to people who walk their dogs tripping and that kind of thing. And during the process of Dr. Rush's getting up to respond to all of them, he gave us the timeline, and the site authority itself never did have a discussion on this 2025 plan. But at any rate, it will go to the Board of Regents in March, and he's planning to go through an RFQ process and have the contractor and escrow closed by June, which I think is pretty aggressive.
That's pretty quick.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's that. All I can say is maybe the Board of Regents won't go for it, but who knows. I also attended a citizen selection committee with Mr. Little. We looked at the applicants, decided who we would interview, which was most of the people who had applied, and we will be having interviews next week. And after that, it'll be coming to you. I attended the RDP meeting, which was a very, very interesting meeting put on by the county superintendent of schools with what their plans are for making. They got a $25 million, I think, grant, and they're restructuring so that all of the high schools will have centers of excellence, and that's not the term, and I'm grasping for a term here, having been out of the education arena for a long time. I'm not up with the new terms, but it's something, well, I'm not even going to guess. At any rate, it was very interesting. The only part I noticed was that it didn't include anything with Oxnard Union High School District. It was all for high schools. And so I asked about that. Was also curious, considering that the bases impact Oxnard, Port Hueneme, and Camarillo more than most of the other cities, why they hadn't included Oxnard Union High School District. Well, it turns out that Oxnard Union High School District got a grant of their own for $12.5 million, and they're moving to this kind of a thing. And it involves outreach, it involves more mentoring, it involves part of the millions of dollars will be to put kids on buses and take them out to show them employers, to coordinate all of this mentoring and site visits. And Oxnard is going to be making a presentation on RDP 21, but I also asked the city manager to have Oxnard Union High School District come and tell us what it is they're planning to do. I think that with 2 high schools in Camarillo and some of our students still going to the third one, we need to know what their plans are, because they'll be changing as well. And I just thought you'd like to know. Anyway, I found it very interesting, except for the fact that it didn't apply to us. We've been doing our base visits leading up to the RDP lobbying trip in D.C., which will come in March. And so I've been going out to the bases quite often. Might have been November, December. Somebody noticed in the one of the reports that House Hunters International had gotten a special events permit to do some filming here, and I saw 2 of them. I don't know how many they did. They showed absolutely nothing about Camarillo. On both of them, it said they were from Camarillo. They talked to people in their Camarillo homes, and they showed nothing here. One of them on the map said Los Angeles, and the other one actually said Camarillo on the map, you know, before they go off to the island or wherever they went. So I just wanted to report that I saw it. And then water conservation being a prime thing, I just want to tell you, we used 5 units of water in December, January, my last bill. So
Yeah, but we can't take showers once a week, Charlotte.
I got 3 people at my house. The little guy gets all his baths at my house. You just have to be careful.
Okay,
No, he gets the big bathtub.
let's move this thing along. First of all, attended the City Selection Committee, which is a meeting of the mayors to select people to regional organizations, and we did select Carmen Ramirez to the of Oxnard, Vice Mayor of Oxnard, to the LAFCO board, and we did place the mayor of Fillmore on the Aqua board, and also one of the councilmen from the new councilman from Port Hueneme on that board is an alternate. We probably won't meet again for a year, which is probably just as well.
It's early, isn't it?
7 o'clock in the morning?
7:30.
And by the way, I was kept on the board by, my lady friend. She called and said, Mike, you can be an alternate for Al like I used to be.
You should know your lady friend.
Because the alternate... Maybe I don't want anybody to know my lady friend. Anyway, she said that we...
There we go.
Anyway.
Your good friend whose name you can't remember.
Boy. Anyway,
I'm still on there.
Yeah.
So.
Well, she said she was going to help you out. Anyway, we attended the, we talked about the goal setting, attended the VCTC last Friday. Not much is happening there. Along with Mike, I attended not only the monthly Camarillo Ranch board meeting, but we also, both of us took in the retreat. It's true I left after 5 hours, Mike.
I know, we both
had to be in Malibu, and I needed some time there. Among the, which by the way is very interesting, I suddenly realized how much activity goes on in this city when you're the mayor. It just seems like virtually everything. I spent all day Saturday, spending time to install the Boys and Girls Board of Directors to the new offices. Also took in an Eagle Scout Court of Honor that evening. So, and a number of other sort of mayor things I did. But anyway, busy week.
Bill, before you leave, I got to tell you, Bill had to stand there like an hour and a half in one spot.
Oh yeah.
At the firemen's annual celebration, they give all the stuff out.
Mike,
we were in Simi Valley.
Like 2.5 hours.
Across from the light. Yeah, he was standing there all that time. I kept saying, Bill, you wanted it.
Yeah. Well, we did. Mike and I did attend the fire department's annual award, which they give out, probably awards to about half the department, I think.
Yeah, a lot of them.
And it's very interesting, and these people are well-deserved of the awards. They're mainly for life-saving skills and for things that have
Probably
occurred
too.
in their line of duty, and we're appreciative to have them. But it was a long session. So anyway, anything else to come before this?
You didn't ask Mr. Kildee if he wanted to comment.
On what?
Well,
Did
he
you
did.
comment?
He commented.
I
Oh,
did.
the trucks,
I
you did.
I did, yes.
Man, I
know,
was asleep while you were commenting.
Well, you're not alone.
He concentrated on it.
What happens?
But Mrs. McDonald has to report on the Joint Land Use Committee.
You went to a land use committee meeting.
Yes, the joint use land, joint land use study. It's very close to having the document ready for circulation and comment, and
It's about 2 inches thick.
yeah, I was about to say that. So I'm hoping that we're going to bring it to you, but you have to read it before you get to have the discussion, and it's about yay thick.
Okay.
But no, it will be out for circulation for comments, and the thought would be to take it to our respective bodies to get input before the final document.
Okay.
And it should be hopefully a useful document for all. It's not binding in any way, but it gives a lot of information that should be useful in coming years.
Your Honor, I did attend a BRSD meeting that I neglected.
Oh,
to
okay.
take.
All right. If you
I was
stand
waiting for
adjourned.
that.
Thank you. Appreciate it.